Chapter 885. Because without actual combat experience, there is no chance of winning against people of the same level. In fact, even someone with a lower cultivation base than you could possibly kill you. On this point, the head pagoda was very thoughtful. Qin Feiyang asked, "Is it true that the higher you go, the better the battle art?" It's not that the better the battle art, but the higher the chance of getting a perfect battle art. However, even if you go to the 10th floor, the chance of getting a perfect battle art is estimated to be 1 in 10,000. Chu Xian said. 1 in 10,000? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. The chances of that happening were extremely slim. Although many of our head pagoda disciples have perfect battle arts, their perfect battle arts are basically passed down from their own tribes. It can be said that people who can get a perfect battle art in this martial arts treasure house are very rare. Just like me, over the years, I have entered the martial arts treasure house, if not 100 times, at least 90 times. But the best battle art I got was only a superior auxiliary battle art. Chu Xian sighed. Then have you been to the upper floors? Qin Feiyang asked. I have been to the 2nd floor. As for the 3rd and 10th floor, the contribution points required are too much, so I have never been there. Chu Xian shook her head. Qin Feiyang smiled. Then in the future, if you don't mind, let's go hunting together. Just you? Chu Xian looked him up and down and shook her head after a while. Forget it. I'm afraid you will drag me down. I'll drag you down? Qin Feiyang's expression stiffened. He originally thought that since Fatso liked this woman, he would help her, but he didn't expect to be ridiculed. Chu Xian didn't say anything more, turned around and walked around before finally choosing a stone box. Qin Feiyang went up and looked at it curiously. But when the stone box was opened, Chu Xian, who was standing in front of him, disappeared without a sign. And? Qin Feiyang was shocked and quickly looked around. But in such a big 1st floor, Chu Xian's figure was nowhere to be found. Where did she go? Qin Feiyang was surprised and also grabbed a stone box and tried to open it. Immediately, he sensed a mysterious power enveloping him. Then, his vision blurred, and he appeared in a small square. Qin Feiyang hurriedly looked up and saw an ancient pagoda in front of him. Below the ancient pagoda, an old man sat cross-legged. It was Elder Wang. Chu Xian was there as well. At this moment, she was holding the stone box and standing beside Qin Feiyang. It's out already? Qin Feiyang was stunned. I forgot to tell you that once you open the stone box, the martial arts treasury will immediately send you out. Chu Xian whispered. Qin Feiyang's face twitched, and his heart was filled with bitterness. Previously, he had thought that something bad might have happened to Chu Xian, so he casually took a stone box. But he didn't expect this to be the case. Qin Feiyang looked at Chu Xian helplessly and asked, "Then what battle art did you get?" "Low-grade battle art," Chu Xian said disappointedly and walked to Elder Wang. She took out her identity token and handed it to Elder Wang together with the jade slip and the stone box. What's going on? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Although it was a low-grade battle art and was useless, it could be given away or sold. Why did she give it back to the martial arts treasury? After Elder Wang put away the jade slip and the stone box, he waved his hand again and a stream of light entered Chu Xian's identity token. Then, he returned the identity token to Chu Xian. Chu Xian took the identity token and didn't stop. She turned around and walked to Qin Feiyang's side. Looking at Qin Feiyang's suspicious face, she explained, "The main pagoda has another rule. If you encounter a battle art that you don't like, you can return it to Elder Wang. In this case, Elder Wang will return 1/10 of the contribution points. For example, I used 100 contribution points to enter the 1st floor. If I return the jade slip to Elder Wang, I will return 10 contribution points." I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. This kind of rule was quite humane. At least he wouldn't lose money. Good luck, Chu Xian said coldly. She then turned into a beam of light and flew towards the warrior mountain range. This woman is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Qin Feiyang looked at Chu Xian's back with a faint smile on his face. Although they had been together for less than an hour, he knew a little about Chu Xian's character. She wasn't as bad as he first thought. Then, he retracted his gaze and opened the stone box. He saw a gray jade slip lying inside. It looked like an ordinary stone without any brilliance. Before looking at it, Qin Feiyong began to feel disappointed, because generally, high-grade battle arts would have a bright color in the jade slip. However, he could not look at it. He took out the gray jade slip and immersed his mind into it. A stream of information flowed into his mind. Battle art name, soul tampering skill, level, no grade. What's with no grade? Qin Feiyong was confused. As everyone knew, whether it was martial arts or battle arts, they were divided into 4 grades: upper, middle, lower, and perfect. But he had never heard of a gradeless skill before. With a stomach full of doubts, he continued to read. In the end, he found that he couldn't understand this soul-tampering skill at all. Overall, it felt like a complete paragraph had been erased so that people would not know what was written. It was the first time he encountered such a situation. He took the jade slip and walked to Elder Wang. He cupped his hands and said, "I have doubts in my heart. Elder Wang, please answer." "Speak." Elder Wang spoke with his eyes closed. Qin Feiyong asked, "Is there a gradeless battle art in the world?" As soon as this question came out, Elder Wang's eyebrows twitched, but he didn't open his eyes. He said, "Did you get the soul-tampering skill?" "How do you know, Elder Wang?" Qin Feiyong was surprised. Elder Wang said, "Because in the entire martial arts treasure house, only the soul-tampering skill has no grade." "Then what level does this gradeless skill represent? What kind of battle art is the soul-tampering skill?" Qin Feiyong was puzzled. A gradeless skill means that it's inferior to an inferior battle art. As for what battle art it is, you'll have to comprehend it yourself. Of course, a gradeless battle art is definitely not very strong. You have to know whether to keep it or not, Elder Wang said. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong's face was full of bitter smiles. His luck was too good. He actually got a battle art that was inferior to an inferior one. If this were to spread, he would be mocked by countless people. After pondering for a moment, Qin Feiyong asked, "If I return it to you, will I have to return the contribution points?" "Then let me ask you, did you ask for contribution points when you went in?" Elder Wang asked. "No." Qin Feiyong shook his head. "That's right. You'll have to use your contribution points to return the contribution points," Elder Wang said. "Forget it then. I'll keep it." Qin Feiyong put away the gray jade slip and handed the stone box to Elder Wang. Then, he sighed and got ready to leave. Get lost. But at this moment, an angry shout came from afar. Qin Feiyong looked over and saw 2 figures standing opposite each other in the void half a mile away. One of them was Chu Xian. The other person was a young man in purple. He was quite handsome, but very unfamiliar. The 2 of them seemed to be arguing about something. Qin Feiyong observed for a while. Seeing that the 2 of them had not stopped arguing, he turned into a stream of light and flew over. At the same time, Elder Wang opened his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyong's back. 2 rays of light burst out of his eyes. Then, he took out the image crystal and poured his battle chi into it. Soon, a middle-aged man's shadow appeared. It was the chief pagoda master. "Another little guy has obtained the soul-refining technique," Elder Wang said, but he did not get up, nor did he bow to the chief pagoda master. The chief pagoda master was stunned and hurriedly asked, "Who?" Elder Wang said, "It's the young man who has a good relationship with Lu Xingfeng. His name is a bit strange, called Ancestor Mu." "Did he take it?" the chief pagoda master asked. "Yes." Elder Wang nodded. The chief pagoda master pondered for a moment and sighed. "I only hope that he won't be like those people in the past and not know how to cherish it." "Not necessarily. After so many years, there have been many people who have obtained the soul-refining technique. Among them, there is no lack of talented geniuses, but none of them have been able to comprehend the true meaning of the soul-refining technique. In short, it's best not to have too much hope," Elder Wang said. "That's true." The chief pagoda master nodded and smiled. "But we still have to pay attention. What if he comprehends it?" "Slim," Elder Wang said casually, then turned off the image crystal and closed his eyes. The place fell into dead silence again. "Chu Xian, I was really wrong. Can you forgive me?" "I swear. I will treat you well in the future and never let you down again." "Swear?" Guofeng, do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? So easy to fool? Let me tell you, I don't want to have anything to do with you now, because you don't have the qualifications. Get lost immediately, as far as you can. And then there was Qin Feiyang. As the distance gradually shortened, he finally heard the content of the dispute between Chu Xian and the purple-clothed youth. It turned out that the purple-clothed youth was Guofeng. But wasn't Guofeng pursuing Pei Yi's cousin now? Why was he pestering Chu Xian? Qin Feiyang frowned, thought carefully, and soon understood what was going on. Swoosh! The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, and he sped up and landed beside Chu Xian. Seeing his arrival, Chu Xian and Guofeng also stopped arguing. Chu Xian looked at Qin Feiyang, raised her beautiful eyebrows, and did not say anything. However, Guofeng's face darkened, and he said, I know who you are, and I also know that you are related to Divine Emissary Lu, but you'd better stay out of our business. Sorry, this person has nothing wrong with him, except for one bad habit. I can't stand seeing others bully women, especially such a beautiful woman. Qin Feiyang grinned. So, you're here to find trouble? Guofeng said, his eyes flashing with a shocking cold light. Find trouble? There's no need for that. I'm just curious. Haven't you already abandoned Chu Xian to pursue Pei Yu? Why are you now back to beg for Chu Xian's forgiveness? Qin Feiyang chuckled. His face was also filled with ridicule. Chapter 886. If you don't say it, then I'll guess. Is it because Pei Yu doesn't like you at all? Qin Feiyang laughed. Guofeng still didn't say anything, but a trace of killing intent had already appeared in his eyes. Qin Feiyang didn't care at all and continued, thinking about it, when your scorpion tribe was still around, Pei Yu didn't like you, let alone now that your scorpion tribe has been exterminated. Have you said enough? Guofeng's eyes immediately turned blood red. Don't be angry, don't be angry. I'll just say one more thing. As a person, you have to have some conscience. Since you've already abandoned Chu Xian, then don't harass her anymore. Qin Feiyang said. Harass? With my status, it's her fortune to take a fancy to her. Guofeng roared, somewhat hysterical. Chu Xian was also angry. However, Qin Feiyang reached out to stop her and looked at Guofeng with a smile. If it was in the past, I wouldn't dare to deny what you said. After all, Chu Xian's family is only a small tribe. But now, other than the title of the King of the Third Peak, what else do you have? So get it straight, it's not that Chu Xian isn't worthy of you. It's that you aren't worthy of her. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Guofeng was about to explode. Don't deny it, it's the truth. All right, stop pestering me. If others see you, where will you put your face in the future as the King of the Third Peak? Qin Feiyang waved his hand as if he was chasing away flies. Boom. The infuriated Guofeng's aura suddenly erupted as he threw a punch at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang shook his head and grabbed Guofeng's fist. He smiled faintly and said, Don't ask for trouble. Although Guofeng had already stepped into the peak of the 9-star war sect, he had also stepped into the 9-star war sect. He was confident that he could easily take down this person. Guofeng was also very astonished that Qin Feiyang was able to easily block his punch. He glanced at Qin Feiyang, then glanced at Chu Xian. In the end, he withdrew his arm and said, You will regret this sooner or later. With that, he left angrily. Regret? The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth curled into a meaningful arc. In the meantime, Chu Xian also heaved a sigh of relief. She turned to Qin Feiyang and said, Thank you. It's a piece of cake. Qin Feiyang glanced at her, turned around and waved his hand with a smile. Then, he walked away. Back to Tower 1. Qin Feiyang happened to meet Mu Qing, but Mu Qing didn't say a word to him. She didn't even look at him. She just brushed past him. Obviously, Mu Qing was still brooding over what happened a year ago. Qin Feiyang naturally wouldn't use his hot face to stick to Mu Qing's cold butt. He directly returned to the alchemy room and was about to continue cultivating. But at this time, Mo Feng came looking for him again. And this time, Mo Feng's intention was to ask him to go to the trading pavilion with him. The reason was that the trading pavilion would auction the second Juku Yellow Dragon Pill in the evening. Qin Feiyang was definitely not interested in this. Because the Juku yellow dragon pill was originally refined by him, he tactfully rejected Mo Feng. Mo Feng did not force him. After Mo Feng left, Qin Feiyang suddenly thought of the soul refining technique. He sat cross-legged in the cultivation room, took out the jade slip, and naturally started to read it. He had been struggling with a question. Was there a gradeless battle art in the world? As the son of the emperor of the great Qin Empire, he had some understanding of battle arts, but he had never heard of such a thing. No. Suddenly, a trace of bewilderment crawled up his eyes because he thought of a suspicious point. He remembered. At that time, he asked Elder Wang what kind of battle art this soul refining technique was, and Elder Wang's answer was to let him comprehend it himself. And this answer, at first glance, there was nothing wrong with it, but thinking about it carefully, there was a big problem. Because if this soul refining technique was really a battle art that was worse than a low-grade battle art, then Elder Wang would not let him comprehend it at all, because it was a waste of time. So he was thinking, could this be Elder Wang hinting at something? Qin Feiyang sat alone in the cultivation room, thinking for a long time. In the end, he still decided to properly comprehend this soul refining technique. Although his guess might not be true, at least he had to figure out what kind of battle art this was. So, he closed his eyes, sank his mind into the jade slip, and calmed his heart to comprehend. At the same time, the East City district was once again flooded by the crowd. Especially near the trading pavilion, it was simply too crowded. Now, to enter the trading pavilion, even the people from the major tribes had to queue up. Li He was in the lounge, watching this scene through the window, and he was also grinning from ear to ear. "Grandfather, you must be overjoyed." Suddenly, Li Yan appeared out of thin air, hugging Li He's arm and giggling. "Of course." Li He laughed and then asked, "Have you seen that kid?" "No. I knocked on the door for a long time, but he didn't even respond." Li Yan pouted, very dissatisfied. She didn't pick the right time. When she went, Qin Feiyang happened to go to the martial arts treasure house. Naturally, no one would respond to her. "Silly girl, to deal with this kid, you have to be patient. But you have good taste since you can take a fancy to him, because this person's future achievements will definitely be limitless." Li He rubbed Li Yan's head and smiled. "Take a fancy to him?" Li Yan was stunned. "If you don't take a fancy to him, why did you go to him?" "Yen, don't be shy in front of grandfather," Li He said. Li Yan wanted to cry but had no tears. Actually, the reason why she went to look for Qin Feiyang was purely to fight for justice for Li He, because Li He waited for a full year for a Juku yellow dragon pill. But she didn't expect Li He's imagination to be so rich. In the evening, the auction finally began, hosted by Li He personally. The entire auction house was filled with the sound of bidding, and it lasted for half an hour before it ended. And the final winner was still someone Qin Feiyang knew, Pei. Time flew by. The next morning, Qin Feiyang, who had been comprehending the soul refining technique, suddenly opened his eyes, his face full of surprise. After a day and night of comprehension, he didn't manage to comprehend anything. It could even be said that he gained nothing. But because of this, he couldn't help but begin to suspect that this soul-refining technique might not be as simple as Elder Wang said. Because, in the past, even if it was a perfect battle art, he could thoroughly comprehend it overnight. But the soul-refining technique was profound and difficult to understand. This meant that it might be a very amazing battle art. However, he didn't continue to comprehend it, because he had already told Mo Feng that he would go to the Longfeng house today. He put away the jade slip and got up to wash up. The alchemy rooms here all had a special place to wash up in the lounge. After washing up, he took out a brand new white robe and changed into it. This was the uniform of the disciples of the main tower. Immediately after, he walked out of the lounge, opened the stone door, and happened to see Mo Feng and Pei walking out of their respective alchemy rooms. The moment the three of them looked at each other, they were a little stunned. Then, Qin Feiyang and Pei smiled at the same time. As for Mo Feng, there was also a trace of a smile on his face, but it was still very stiff. For someone like him who didn't like to smile, it was too forced to smile. The three of them turned around at the same time and closed the stone door. Then, Pei and Mo Feng took a step forward and landed beside Qin Feiyang. Pei smiled and said, Where's Qin Day? He should still be cultivating. I'll go call him. Mo Feng walked to the door of the number 9 alchemy room and knocked hard on the door. After a while, Mu Qing came out. However, when she saw the three of them, she only nodded at Pei Yi and Mo Feng with a smile, ignoring Qin Feiyang at the side. Pei Yi noticed this subtle change immediately and looked at the two of them suspiciously, but he didn't ask much. A proud person like him would not casually pry into other people's private affairs. Under Pei Yi's instructions, Mo Feng opened a portal and the four of them walked in one after another. Longfeng Pavilion. On the street in front of the door, there was an endless stream of people. Among the crowd, Qin Feiyang and the other three appeared out of thin air. Qin Feiyang looked around with a surprised expression on his face. It was still early in the morning. Why were there so many people rushing into Longfeng Pavilion? The people rushing in from all the streets basically all entered Longfeng Pavilion. There were rich tycoons. There were people from the various tribes. There were also many disciples of the main tower. In short, those who entered Longfeng Pavilion now were all people of a certain status. As Pei Yi walked towards the restaurant, he smiled and said, "You guys don't know, but today is the day to sell Longfeng wine." Longfeng wine? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Now that he said that, he remembered that Longfeng Pavilion would sell a jar of Longfeng wine every month. It seemed that these people were all here for the Longfeng wine. Mu Qing glanced at Pei Yi and Qin Feiyang and secretly said to Qin Feiyang, "Come with me, I have something to say to you." Qin Feiyang glanced at him and sent a voice transmission. "If you have anything to say, can't you just send me a voice transmission? Cut the crap, just go." Mu Qing's gaze turned cold as he said impatiently. Qin Feiyang frowned and looked at Pei Yi and Mo Feng. He cupped his fists and smiled. "Senior brother Pei, senior brother Mo, Qin Day and I have some private matters to attend to. You guys go in first. We'll be there soon." "Okay. I've already booked the room yesterday. It's in room 3 on the 10th floor. You guys can come up when you're done." Pei Yi stopped and looked at the two of them with a smile. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded and then blended into the crowd with Mu Qing. Soon, they disappeared from their sight. "What is it that you have to hide from us?" Mo Feng asked with a frown. "Everyone has secrets that they don't want others to know. Why bother so much? Let's go." Pei Yi smiled faintly and led Mo Feng into Longfeng Pavilion. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing walked down the street. After a while, Mu Qing saw a deserted alley and walked in. "What are you trying to say?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Mu Qing did not answer and kept walking until there was no one around. She then stopped and stretched out her hand. "Give me my second grandpa's identity token. Just for this?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. He took out the pure gold token and threw it to Mu Qing. Chapter 887. What's the matter? Tell me. Seeing that Mu Qing was serious, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but become serious. "Master." Mu Qing enunciated each word clearly, her eyes shining brightly. "Him?" Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and said in surprise, "You also found him?" It was Mu Qing who was stunned and said, "You already know?" "Yes. I met him in the 9th zone. It's the restaurant where you and your second grandpa found me last time." Qin Feiyang said, "He came at that time? Why didn't you tell me?" Mu Qing frowned. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, "Would it make sense to tell you?" Mu Qing said, "Of course it would make sense. I can send someone to stop him from entering the Central Divine Kingdom." "What? You mean he has already entered the Central Divine Kingdom?" Qin Feiyang said in surprise. Mu Qing nodded and said, "Yes, I met him at the auction house of the Eastern City Trading Pavilion yesterday." Qin Feiyang was shocked and said, "That's impossible. If he really went to the Eastern City Trading Pavilion, Fatso and Yinwei should have found out. But why didn't I receive any news? Master has changed his appearance. Even if he stood in front of them, they wouldn't recognize him." Mu Qing pursed her lips with a touch of sarcasm. Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened. This was not good news. "Now you don't have to worry. Although Fatso and Yinwei work in the trading pavilion, they have also changed their appearances. As long as they don't show any flaws, Master won't recognize them. As for the Juku Yellow Dragon Elixir, Master will definitely think that it was made by you. But as long as Li He doesn't say anything, he won't be able to find out your current identity. Now I'm thinking, why did Master come to the Forgotten Land? Just for you? Or do you have other motives? Mu Qing's brows were tightly knitted, and there was an indescribable sense of irritation. Qin Feiyang looked at him in surprise and said, even if he has other motives, you don't have to be so worried. Nonsense. He is a false god, only half a step away from becoming a god. How can I not be worried? Mu Qing rolled her eyes at him. What about your Mu family? In the Forgotten Continent alone, you've continued for over 10,000 years. Could it be that you haven't given birth to a single fake god? Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously. Do you think it's so easy to create a false god? I might as well tell you the truth. In the Forgotten Continent, the strongest person is the 9-star combat emperor. False god? Never heard of it. Mu Qing said. So you're saying that if the imperial tutor makes a move, then wouldn't there be no one in the Forgotten Continent who would dare to fight against him? Qin Feiyang frowned. If you say that, then you're underestimating the Forgotten Continent. Although there are no false gods in the Forgotten Continent, we have divine artifacts. If we really fight, it's hard to say who will live and who will die. Mu Qing sneered. Qin Feiyang's eyes narrowed slightly. The divine artifact that Mu Qing was talking about, was it the gate of time and space? I've told you about this. In the future, be careful when you do things. Especially Li He. Make sure he keeps his mouth shut. If it's because of him that our plan is ruined, I'll make sure he dies without a complete corpse. Mu Qing's eyes flashed with a hint of murderous intent. Then, she went back the way she came and walked towards the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and muttered to himself for a while. Looking at Mu Qing's back, he said, let me see the Imperial Tutor's current appearance after his disguise. Mu Qing stopped and waved her hand. A shadow quickly condensed. It was an old man in a red robe. He had long fiery red hair and a strong body. Although his face was old, it was ruddy and looked very energetic. Wait for me for a while. I'll go and talk to Fatso and Yinwei. Qin Feiyang looked at the shadow, then entered the castle and immediately took out the image crystal. At this time, Wolf King said, Little Qinzi, I feel that Mu Qing is lying. Qin Feiyang was stunned and turned to look at Wolf King suspiciously. What I mean is that the content of his lie is not the Imperial Tutor, but a false god. I'm sure that there must be a false god in the Mu family, Wolf King said. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was curious. The gate of time and space. If the Real Gate of Time and Space is really a divine artifact, then it must be a god or a false god to awaken it, Wolf King said. Heard it. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered and nodded. You're right. We can't take the Mu family's heritage lightly. Buzz. As soon as his voice fell, Fatso's shadow appeared. Boss, do you want to have a drink? Fatso smiled. At this moment, he was sitting in an empty room. There were 2 pots of wine on the table in front of him and a few delicious dishes. Yinwei was also sitting opposite Fatso. The two were eating and drinking, and their days were quite comfortable. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at Fatso and said, If I were Li He, I would have fired you. Unfortunately, you're not. What's more, Li He can't wait to curry favor with us. How can he fire us? Tell me, what's the matter? Fatso smiled and asked. Qin Feiyang said, Do you know that the state preceptor also went to the auction house yesterday? What? The two were clinking glasses. When they heard this, their arms trembled and the wine spilled all over the floor. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the state preceptor's appearance appeared in the void. This is what he looks like now. Pay attention to it. By the way, tell Li He and Li Yin that they can't mention the Juku Yellow Dragon Pill to anyone. Also tell them to be careful. I'm worried that the state preceptor may use extreme means to force them to reveal my identity. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Understood. The two looked at the state preceptor's shadow and nodded heavily. Their faces were also extremely heavy. They didn't expect the state preceptor to enter the central divine kingdom so quickly. For a moment, they didn't even have the mood to drink. Be careful. Qin Feiyang exhorted the two of them again before turning off the image crystal and leaving the ancient castle. Together with Mu Qing, he walked towards the Longfeng Pavilion. Soon, They came to the front door of the restaurant. But as soon as they entered the restaurant, Qin Feiyang saw a familiar figure. It was a young man wearing a purple robe. He had a tall figure and exuded an extraordinary aura. The young man in purple walked to a waiter and asked with a smile, "Which private room is Pei in?" The waiter looked up at the young man in purple and said with a smile, "Oh, it's young Master Gua. Young Master Pei is in private room number 3 on the 10th floor. I'm a little busy now, so you can only go up by yourself. Please forgive me for not serving you well." "It's okay." The young man in purple waved his hand and walked upstairs. "So it's Guofeng," Qin Feiyang muttered. Although the Dragon Phoenix house was very noisy at the moment, he still heard Guofeng's voice clearly. Looking at Guofeng's back, the corners of his mouth gradually curled into a mocking smile. In the past, no matter how busy he was, this waiter would definitely bring Guofeng up personally. But now, although the waiter was rather polite, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that he didn't like Guofeng. "Oh, young Master Mu, young Master Qin, what a rare guest." The waiter soon saw Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing and hurriedly scurried towards them with a fawning smile on his face. Back then, the feud between Qin Feiyang and Gua Ming started there. Hence, the waiter of the restaurant had a deep impression of the two of them. At the same time, Guofeng also heard the waiter's voice and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, after which a shocking and icy cold gaze flashed past his eyes. However, he didn't say anything and continued to walk upstairs. Mu Qing glanced at Guofeng suspiciously and secretly asked, "Do you guys have a feud with each other?" "We do have some personal feuds." Qin Feiyang expressed assent calmly. At this moment, the waiter asked, "Young masters, did you make a reservation in advance?" "Yes, we can go up by ourselves." "You may go ahead," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "All right then. Feel free to let me know if you have any instructions." The waiter nodded and bowed before turning around and scurrying away. His attitude was completely different from when he saw Guofeng. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing also headed upstairs. However, Qin Feiyang kept wondering, why did Guofeng go to look for Pei Yi? Soon, Guofeng walked to the door of the 3rd private room on the 10th floor and reached out to knock on the door gently. Mo Feng was the one who opened the door. However, when she saw that it was Guofeng, she immediately raised her brows and asked, "What's the matter?" "Yes." Guofeng nodded. Mo Feng said, "Senior brother Pei Yi is entertaining a guest right now. Let's talk another day." Mo Feng, "Let him in." As soon as Mo Feng finished speaking, Pei Yi's voice sounded from the private room. Mo Feng frowned and retreated to the side. Guofeng strode in. Just as Mo Feng was about to close the door, she suddenly saw Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing walking up to the 10th floor and was about to greet them. "Sure." Qin Feiyang gestured for her to keep quiet and shot Mo Feng a glance. Mo Feng was stunned for a moment before she understood what he meant. She turned around and half closed the door before walking towards the tea room. In the tea room, Pei Yi sat in front of the coffee table with a calm expression on his face. His actions were steady and he exuded a domineering aura. Guofeng walked towards Pei Yi and said with a smile, "You really know how to enjoy life? Life is short. I naturally have to enjoy it when I have the chance. Please take a seat." Pei Yi smiled calmly. Guofeng walked toward Pei Yi and took a seat opposite him before scanning the room. The private room was not very luxurious, but it was simple and elegant. There was a separate dining room, bedroom, and tea room. However, at this moment, apart from Pei Yi and Mo Feng, there was no one else. Guofeng asked suspiciously, "Mo Feng, didn't you say that you were entertaining a guest?" "They haven't arrived yet." Mo Feng, who had just entered the tea room, heard Guofeng's question and said expressionlessly, "May I know who these guests are? They actually made Brother Pei host a banquet personally?" Guofeng's eyes lit up and he asked with a smile. Pei Yi smiled and said, "Let's talk about the purpose of your visit first." Hearing this, Guofeng fell silent, seemingly unsure of what to say. Pei Yi was not in a hurry. He picked up the teacup and slowly tasted it. A moment later, Guofeng gritted his teeth and looked at Pei Yi before saying, "To be honest, Brother Pei, I'm here for Pei Yu." Hearing this, Pei Yi was not surprised at all. Clearly, he had already known the purpose of Guofeng's visit. Chapter 888. Guofeng said, Peiyu hasn't accepted me yet, but I genuinely like her. She doesn't have to like you back just because you like her. Both parties have to like each other. Pei smiled. You're right, Brother Pei. However, feelings can be nurtured slowly. Give me some time, and I'll definitely be able to move her. Guofeng said. Pei looked at him in bewilderment and asked, Since you're so confident, what are you here for? I want you to put in a good word for me in front of Peiyu, Brother Pei. Everyone knows that you and Peiyu are the closest to each other, and she listens to you the most. As long as you're willing to help, things will be much easier. Guofeng stood up and said with a pleading tone, cupping his fists. Ha! Pei laughed. Mo Feng, who was beside him, had a faint trace of ridicule on his face. Seeing this, Guofeng's eyes turned gloomy and he frowned. Don't get me wrong, I'm not looking down on you. The heavenly scorpion tribe may have been exterminated, but I believe that you'll definitely be able to make a name for yourself in the future, Pei said with a smile. Hearing his words, Guofeng's face finally relaxed. Pei said, I'm just thinking that since you or doesn't fancy you, we'd better let fate take its course. Don't force it. Guofeng frowned and said, Brother Pei, you know me well. I've never asked anyone for help before. This is the first time. Then, you should know that I, Pei Qinghan, will never help anyone. Pei chuckled. Guofeng's heart sank. He naturally knew Pei well. He had long expected that to happen. However, he was still displeased. Pei asked smilingly, Is there anything else? He was clearly trying to chase Guofeng away. Guofeng's eyes lit up and he said, If I really manage to move Peiyu, do you promise that you won't stop us? If you really love each other, why would I stop you? Of course, if your intentions are impure, it'll be a different story. For example, you might want to use the divine python tribe to fulfill your ambitions or plot something else. Pei smiled. Guofeng's eyes lit up and he patted his chest. Don't worry, those things won't happen. Let's wait and see. Pei smiled calmly. Seemingly reminded of something all of a sudden, he asked, I remember that you used to be with a woman named Chu Xian? I won't deny it. But a year ago, I had already severed all ties with her. Please don't worry, I will never do anything to hurt Peiyu. Guofeng said, Is it really over? But before he could finish his sentence, a playful voice sounded from outside the door. Next, the door was pushed open. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing walked in one after another. Who let you in? As soon as Guofeng saw Qin Feiyang, his expression changed greatly, and he immediately shouted with a stern voice. Mo Feng glanced at Qin Feiyang and Huang Xiaolong, and said coldly, I'm sorry, they are the guests we're here to entertain. What? Guofeng was dumbfounded. When did these two become so close to Pei? Qin Feiyang walked into the tea room and nodded at Pei. He then looked at Guofeng and said with a smile, Are you very nervous and hesitant now? Guofeng's face was as cold as water. He secretly threatened, Think carefully about what you should and shouldn't say. Qin Feiyang teased, Then let's see if you can seal my mouth. What do you want? Guofeng asked in a deep voice. What can you give me? Qin Feiyang asked back. Guofeng secretly said, Perfect battle art, pills, herbs, alchemy fire, whatever you want. Qin Feiyang was surprised and said telepathically, Then I want 2 kinds of 6th grade alchemy fire and 3 kinds of 7th grade alchemy fire. Do you have them? Don't go overboard. Guofeng was instantly enraged. 2 kinds of 6th grade alchemy fire and 3 kinds of 7th grade alchemy fire. How dare this guy ask for it? Mu Qing glanced at the two of them and asked curiously, Why are you guys looking at each other like that? Is there anything that you can't say in public? Hurry up and make a decision. Otherwise, I'll say it. You should know very well what the consequences will be if Pei finds out that you went to look for Chu Xian yesterday. Qin Feiyang chuckled and sent a telepathic message. Initially, he just wanted to tease Guofeng and then tell Pei everything that happened yesterday. However, he did not expect Guofeng to have alchemy fire. It would be a waste not to take advantage of the situation. Guofeng glanced at Pei and the other two and said, I don't have a 7th grade alchemy fire, but I do have a 6th grade alchemy fire. I have it with me now. If you want it, I'll give it to you immediately. No, you have to have at least 2 kinds of 6th grade alchemy fire. Otherwise, forget it. Qin Feiyong refused flatly. Okay, I agree. But remember, you must keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, I won't let you off easily. Guofeng said. Of course. Qin Feiyong chuckled and turned to look at Pei Yi. Senior brother Pei, senior brother Guofeng, and I have some private matters to discuss outside. Go ahead. Pei Yi did not ask anything, appearing extremely magnanimous. Senior brother Guofeng, please. Qin Feiyong turned to look at Guofeng again and gestured for him to leave. Goodbye, brother Pei. Guofeng cupped his fists at Pei Yi and turned to leave with Qin Feiyong. Not long after, Qin Feiyong returned to the private room, beaming with joy. Obviously, he had already obtained the alchemy fire. As for the remaining 6th grade alchemy fire, Guofeng had also promised that he would give it to him within 3 days. After Qin Feiyong closed the door of the private room and entered the tea room, Mo Feng looked at him and asked with a frown, "What exactly did you say to him?" "Definitely nothing good." Mu Qing sneered. "You talk too much." Qin Feiyong glared at him and then glanced at Pei Yi, only to see that Pei Yi was staring at him meaningfully. Qin Feiyong's heart skipped a beat and he wondered, did Pei Yi sense something? Fortunately, Pei Yi soon looked away. Dong. After a while, someone knocked on the door. 5 or 6 waiters entered the private room with some exquisite delicacies and 4 jars of dragon's wine. "It's a rare opportunity. Let's have a good drink today." Pei Yi stood up and greeted them. After 3 rounds of drinks, Pei Yi put down his wine glass and looked at Qin Feiyong with a smile. "Junior brother, do you have any thoughts about the position of the leader of the pagoda?" Qin Feiyong was stunned and asked in puzzlement, "Senior brother Pei, what do you mean?" Pei Yi smiled and said, "The Scorpion tribe has been exterminated and Guoyun is still the leader of the 3 pagodas. Doesn't that seem a little inappropriate?" Qin Feiyong's pupils constricted. Pei Yi's words were obviously laced with sarcasm. It seemed that this person was not as kind as he seemed on the surface. "Senior brother Pei Yi, do you mean that you want me to snatch the position of the leader of the 3 pagodas?" Qin Feiyong asked calmly. "Can you do it?" Pei Yi asked. "I'm afraid not. Although the Scorpion tribe has been exterminated, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. My mental strength is only at level 11. I'm definitely no match for Guoyun. Besides, I've already entered the 1st pagoda. It doesn't seem appropriate to snatch the position of the leader of the 3rd pagoda." Qin Feiyong declined with a smile. He could tell that the so-called banquet this time was actually to discuss how to deal with the remaining members of the Scorpion tribe. To be precise, Pei Yi was using him as a tool. "Junior brother, since you don't want to, just take it that I didn't say those words." Pei Yi smiled. In fact, Qin Feiyong had also guessed wrongly. Pei Yi's purpose of doing this was not to use him as a tool, but to test Qin Feiyong's strength. This was because he had always suspected that the mental strength that Qin Feiyong tested by Elder Wu was not real. And if, now that Qin Feiyong had agreed to snatch the position of the leader of the 3rd pagoda, his guess was confirmed. After all, without a certain level of confidence, one would not dare to challenge Guoyun. However, now, because of Qin Feiyong's rejection, he began to hesitate. Was he really thinking too much? Dong. All of a sudden, a loud and clear bell sound exploded in the Longfeng Pavilion. Ring. Chirp. At the same time, in the sky above the Longfeng Pavilion, a golden divine dragon and a flaming phoenix appeared out of thin air. The dragon roared and the phoenix cried out. The 2 divine beasts danced in the sky and circled, emitting auspicious light. Just at this moment, the noisy Longfeng Pavilion quieted down. "What's going on?" Qin Feiyong got up and walked to the window. Looking at the auspicious light, his eyes were filled with bewilderment. Pei Yi smiled and said, "When the bell rings, the dragon and phoenix cry together. This is the sign that the Longfeng wine is on sale." Qin Feiyong was stunned. He stuck his head out of the window and looked at the dragon and phoenix in the sky. He was speechless. The gimmick is quite big. The golden dragon and phoenix were not real divine beasts. They were just evolved from battle chi. If the gimmick is not a little bigger, who will pay for the Longfeng wine? However, the taste of this Longfeng wine is indeed not bad. Let's go out and take a look. Pei Yi smiled faintly and got up to walk towards the door. When the four of them walked out of the pavilion, the corridors of the various floors were already crowded, but it was very quiet. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the void on the top floor of the restaurant. In the middle of the void, there was a wine jar floating. There were a total of 10 floors in the Longfeng Pavilion. As for Qin Feiyang, he was currently standing on the highest floor. Thus, he was able to clearly see that wine jug. The wine jar was only the size of an adult's palm and was sealed with a layer of beeswax. There was no trace of wine fragrance seeping out, and it looked very ordinary. Ding dong! Suddenly, a pleasant sound of a zither drifted out from the opposite room. The sound of the zither was melodious and clear. The rhythm was smooth and neither fast nor slow. It was like a clear stream flowing slowly by everyone's ears, calming them down unknowingly. Who exactly is this person playing the zither? Qin Feiyang looked at the closed door and muttered to himself. Then, he scanned the surrounding corridors. In the end, his gaze locked onto a certain place and he muttered, "He's here too." A young man stood there, wearing a white robe that was spotless. His black hair was like a waterfall. He had handsome facial features and a slender figure. His entire body exuded a unique aura. At the same time, there was a cynical smile on his face. Chapter 889. Qin Feiyang could also clearly see that young Master Hao was looking at the room where the sound of the zither came from with a trace of infatuation in his eyes. It seemed that the son of the chief pagoda master was very fond of the person playing the zither. Not long after the sound of the zither came out, a slightly plump middle-aged man in black walked out from the back hall on the first floor. Then, he soared into the air and stood in front of the jar of Dragon Phoenix wine. Next, he glanced at everyone in the Dragon Phoenix house and said with a smile, "I believe everyone can't wait any longer. But this time, this jar of Dragon Phoenix wine will not be auctioned." Not auctioning? The Dragon Phoenix house was in an uproar. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang also looked at Pei Yi in confusion. In the past, the Dragon Phoenix wine was sold in an auction. The highest bidder would get it. And this time, the rules should have been changed. Pei Yi said in a low voice with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. "Everyone, quiet down." The slightly plump man reached out and gently pressed the air. The Dragon Phoenix house quieted down again. Next, the slightly plump man took out a scroll from his cosmos bag. Then, with a slight shake of his arm, the scroll slowly unfolded. On the scroll, there was a vast land of mountains and rivers. There was a verdant forest. There was a towering mountain range. There was a rapid river. There were living creatures struggling to survive. And above the mountains and rivers, there was a lifelike 5-clawed golden dragon. It was like an emperor looking down on the world with a ruthless and cold gaze. The rule this time is to write the true meaning hidden in this painting. Whoever's answer can satisfy Miss, this jar of Dragon Phoenix wine will belong to him, and it will be given to him free of charge. In addition, you will have the honor of being personally received by Miss and can make a request to her. The slightly plump man pointed to the room where the sound of the zither came from and smiled. Hearing this, the entire Dragon Phoenix house was in an uproar. Everyone looked at the room where the sound of the zither came from, their eyes filled with desire. Isn't it just a woman? What's there to see? I don't know what they are so excited about. Mu Qing pursed her lips. Of course they are excited, because it is said that the person playing the zither is as beautiful as a fairy, but no one has ever seen her true appearance. Pei smiled. Even young Master Hao has never seen her before? Qin Feiyang asked. Pei glanced at Mr. Hao and said with a shake of his head, "No, that's what makes her so attractive." Qin Feiyang nodded. Young Master Hao was the son of the chief tower master. He came to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion almost every day. This kind of perseverance was unparalleled. But even so, he was unable to move the heart of the person playing the zither. The others were naturally even more curious and eager to see the woman's true appearance. The chubby man continued, "Everyone, you have to hurry up because you only have an hour." He had heard of it. Everyone looked at the painting again. 5-clawed golden dragon. Mountains, rivers, and great earth. What does this mean? Could it be the descent of the heavenly dragon? Or the reincarnation of the heavenly dragon? Or is it the heavenly dragon destroys the world? Everyone fell into deep thought. Qin Feiyong was also looking at the painting, but for some reason, his gaze gradually turned cold. Noticing that Qin Feiyong was behaving strangely, Pei turned to look at him and asked, "Junior brother, have you thought of anything?" "Nothing." Qin Feiyong shook his head, and his cold gaze softened. Pei looked at him in surprise and said with a smile, "Why don't you give it a try?" "I'm not very interested." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Mu Qing frowned and said, "You have to give it a try." "Why?" Qin Feiyong was puzzled. "Didn't you hear that person say that as long as the answer can satisfy the person playing the zither, you can make a request to her? And that woman is someone that young Master Hao admires. If she helps, young Master Hao will definitely do his best to help you become the disciple of the Chief Tower Master." Mu Qing said. Qin Feiyong narrowed his eyes slightly. Mu Qing's words made some sense. After pondering for a while, he looked at the chubby man and said, "Give me a brush and ink." At that moment, everyone looked at Qin Feiyong, including young Master Hao. At the same time, the chubby man was also quite surprised. Obviously, he didn't expect that someone would come up with the answer so quickly. "Come here. Bring that young master a brush and ink immediately." Following the chubby man's order, two waiters hurriedly ran out from the back hall on the first floor. The two waiters were holding an exquisite tray in their hands. On one of the trays, there was a brush, ink, and inkstone. On the other tray, there was a blank scroll. The two waiters quickly ran upstairs and came to Qin Feiyong. They said respectfully, "Young master, please write your answer in the private room." They did this to prevent others from peeping. Qin Feiyong nodded and turned to enter the private room. The waiters followed him in and closed the door tightly. In the tea room, the two waiters put the trays beside the coffee table. One of them ground the ink while the other opened the scroll. Qin Feiyong closed his eyes, and there was a trace of pain between his brows. After a while, the two waiters each held one end of the scroll and laid it flat in front of Qin Feiyong. One of the waiters said, "Young master, you can write now." Swish! Qin Feiyong suddenly opened his eyes, grabbed the brush, and waved it on the paper. The whole process was done in one breath, without the slightest sloppiness. Finally, two lines of vigorous words appeared on the paper. Furthermore, his words were all emitting a threatening aura. The two waiters were also shocked by these two lines of words. They couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. They never expected that someone would come up with this answer. When the ink was dry, the two rolled up the scroll and put it back on the tray. One of the waiters said, "Young master, the final result has to be decided by Mississippi. Please wait for a moment." "Okay." Qin Feiyong nodded. Then, the two waiters left the private room with the scroll, brush, ink, and inkstone. Qin Feiyong didn't go out again. He sat alone in the tea room, as if he was thinking of something unbearable. His whole person was immersed in a kind of painful emotion. And outside, seeing the two waiters come out, everyone looked at the scroll. They were all wondering what was written inside. Young Master Hao's eyes flashed, and he said, "Prepare brush and ink for me." "Men, quickly prepare." The chubby man shouted. Next, one by one, they thought of the most reasonable answer. Soon, half an hour had passed. In the entire Longfeng Pavilion, half of the people had given their answers. After the chubby man announced the end, he brought all the answers and entered the room of the person playing the zither. No one returned to the private room. They stood in the corridor, waiting for the chubby man to announce the results. Time passed breath by breath. After about 2 hours, the chubby man finally walked out of the room. He stood by the corridor and scanned everyone. Suddenly, he looked at the private room where Qin Feiyong was and cupped his hands. "Young Master Mu, please come out and have a chat with my family's young miss." "What? It's actually him." He didn't even think about it before giving the answer. How could he possibly obtain the young miss' favor? Everyone was in an uproar, filled with disbelief. Young Master Hao also frowned, obviously very uncomfortable. After a while, the door finally opened. Qin Feiyong slowly walked out, his entire being expressionless. Pei turned to look at him and smiled. "Junior brother, you're really surprising." "It's just a coincidence." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly, turned into a ray of light, and landed in front of the chubby man. The chubby man cupped his hands and smiled. I am the manager of the Longfeng Pavilion, Pang Su. Greetings, Manager Pang. Qin Feiyong also cupped his hands in return. Pang Su smiled and asked, what about this jar of dragon and phoenix wine? Qin Feiyong said, send it to my private room. All right. Pang Su nodded, then turned and walked to the door. He pushed it open and smiled. Young master, please come in. Qin Feiyong walked to the door and looked inside. There were no gorgeous decorations in the room, only some potted plants and murals. In the left corner, there was a bookcase, and every book was neatly stacked. Beside it was an ancient wooden coffee table, and there was only a chair placed on it. The chair was also carved from ancient wood. Although the decorations were not luxurious, it had a classical feel that made one feel comfortable. Young master, please. Pang Su spoke again. Qin Feiyong glanced at young master Hao, who was not far away, and strode in. Pang Su immediately closed the door. Humph. Just as the door was closed, young master Hao humphed coldly, turned around, and entered the private room without looking back. Seems like this young master Hao is very angry. Pei chuckled. Someone who has been admiring for a long time is now in the same room with another man. If it were me, I would be angry too. But I'm really curious, what answer did Ancestor Mu write? Mo Feng looked at Mu Qing suspiciously. Why are you looking at me? Mu Qing frowned. Mo Feng said, aren't you very close to him? You should be able to think of his answer. After a moment of silence, Mu Qing's eyes lit up and she said, I do know his answer, but I can't tell you. Then, she turned around and entered the private room. Pei Yi and Mo Feng looked at each other in dismay. These two people were really extraordinarily mysterious. Back to Qin Feiyong. After entering the room, he smelled a faint fragrance. It was the fragrance of flowers. There were many blooming flowers in the room, but they were all snow-white and pure. However, there was also a woman's body fragrance in the floral fragrance, which was very pleasant to the nose. Please have a seat. A clear voice suddenly sounded in the room, like an orchid in an empty valley, clear and pleasant to the ear. Qin Feiyong walked to the front of the tea table and sat on the only chair. Then, he raised his head and looked across. There was a snow-white silk curtain hanging on the opposite side, and through the silk curtain, he could vaguely see a guqin placed behind it, and beside the guqin sat a graceful figure. She was blurry and could not be seen clearly. I have a question in my mind. How did you come up with this answer? The woman's voice sounded again. The reason is not important, as long as my answer can be approved by you. Don't you think so? Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. The woman fell silent for a moment, then smiled and said, You're right, young master. I've been rude. Please state your request. My request? Chapter 890. Young Master Hao? The woman was surprised. Qin Feiyong was silent, waiting for the woman's answer. Why? After a long time, the woman asked, Have you heard of a saying, a gentleman has the beauty to help others? Young Master Hao is infatuated with you, but he can't see your face. So I want to help him. Qin Feiyong said. The woman said, So you don't want to see my face? Me? Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, No. Why? Am I not beautiful enough? The woman asked. Qin Feiyong said, I don't know whether you are beautiful or not, so it has nothing to do with this. Then why? You know, this is a rare opportunity for you. The woman said, You are very confident in yourself, but unfortunately, I don't care much about women. There is a saying, I don't know if you have heard of it. Beautiful women are skeletons. Qin Feiyong said lightly. Haha. Hearing this, the woman smiled. This man was really different from the rest. After a while, the woman smiled and said, Okay, I accept your request. Thank you, Mississippi. Qin Feiyong stood up and smiled. Then he turned around and opened the door without a moment's hesitation and strode in. You came out so soon? Brother Mu, can you tell us what she looks like? Don't hide it. As soon as Qin Feiyong appeared, the people gathered in the corridor asked at once. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and didn't say anything. He walked directly to young Master Hao's door. Young Master Hao's room was next door. Dong. He reached out and knocked on the door. Go away, don't bother me. Young Master Hao's voice sounded in the room, with an unquenchable anger. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. He exerted a little force and directly opened the door. He saw young Master Hao sitting alone in front of the tea table. His face was extremely ugly. Seeing that it was Qin Feiyong, young Master Hao immediately stood up and said angrily, Are you here to show off? Show off? Qin Feiyong was rather speechless. He turned around and closed the door. He smiled and said, What's there to show off? What do you mean? Is she not good-looking? Young Master Hao asked. I don't know. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Don't know? Young Master Hao was stunned. Because I only spoke a few words with her. I didn't see her face at all. Qin Feiyong smiled. Then why are you looking for me? Young Master Hao frowned. Haven't you always wanted to see her? So, my request to her is to let her meet you with her real face. Qin Feiyong said. Young Master Hao was confused. Why are you doing this? Just take it that I'm sucking up to you. Qin Feiyong chuckled. Then, he turned around and opened the door without saying anything else. Sucking up to you? Young Master Hao raised his eyebrows and looked at Qin Feiyong's back. He really couldn't understand what this person was thinking. Sucking up to him seemed to be the most reasonable explanation. After all, he was the son of the chief tower master. However, this person didn't seem to be sucking up to him at all. It's a rare opportunity. You have to cherish it. After Qin Feiyong opened the door, he didn't even turn his head as he said those words and walked out in large strides. Thank you. Young Master Hao shuddered and immediately got up to thank him with cupped fists. Qin Feiyong didn't look back and went straight back to private room 3. In the private room, there was a strong fragrance of wine. The Dragon Phoenix wine had been opened. Pei Yi, Mo Feng, and Mu Qing were tasting it leisurely. Why are you so fast? Seeing Qin Feiyong return, the three of them were a little surprised. I gave this opportunity to young Master Hao. Qin Feiyong didn't explain further and asked with a smile, How does the Dragon Phoenix wine taste? You gave it to young Master Hao? Mo Feng and Pei looked at each other, and an imperceptible light flashed in their eyes. It's quite good. Try it too. At the same time, Mu Qing picked up the wine jar and poured a glass for Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong sat next to Pei Yi, picked up the wine glass, put it to his mouth, and took a sip. All of a sudden, he felt as if there was boiling lava flowing down his throat to his lower abdomen. All the blood in his body seemed to be burning, and his skin instantly turned red. This feeling made him very uncomfortable. But soon, the burning sensation disappeared and was replaced by a bone-piercing cold current. At this moment, it was as if his body had been sealed in ice, and even his blood had stopped flowing. He felt that he was about to suffocate. But soon, the bone-piercing cold current disappeared. The burning sensation didn't appear again. Instead, it was replaced by a comfortable warmth, as if they were bathing under the spring sun. How is it? Pei asked with a smile. Qin Feiyong took another sip, tasted it carefully, and said with a smile, To sum it up in 2 sentences, ice and fire. The bitterness is over and the sweetness is over. Yes, the taste of this Dragon Phoenix wine is the same as our life. Only by tasting the pain in the chaotic world will we understand the tranquility brought by peace. Pei nodded with a smile. Qin Feiyong looked at him meaningfully and was about to say something, but at this moment, the image crystal in his arms made a sound. Why are you looking for me at this time? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. This image crystal was newly bought and only established a contract bridge with Fatso and the others, as well as Mu Qing. Mu Qing was next to him. Lu Hong, Wolf King, and the other beasts were also in the ancient castle. Hence, the ones who were contacting him now must be Fatso and Yin Wei. He raised his glass and drank it in one gulp, then put down the glass, got up and said, Senior Brother Pei, Senior Brother Mo, I have something to attend to and can't continue to accompany you. Please forgive me. Without waiting for their response, he turned into a ray of light and rushed out of the window. I'll take my leave too. Mu Qing's eyes lit up and she got up to say a few words to Qin Feiyong and quickly chased after him. Pei Yi and Mu Qing looked at each other and couldn't help but smile bitterly. These two were really busy people. What's the matter? Mu Qing caught up with Qin Feiyang and asked softly. Nothing. Qin Feiyang shook his head and scanned the area below. When he found an empty alley, he swooped down. Next, he ignored Mu Qing and directly entered the ancient castle. At this moment, the image crystal had stopped vibrating. Qin Feiyang took it out of his arms, and his battle chi surged as he took the initiative to send a message to Fatso. The next moment, Fatso's shadow appeared and said angrily, "What are you doing? Why are you only replying now?" Seeing Fatso's expression, Qin Feiyang had a bad feeling and asked, "What happened?" Fatso said, "Li Yin has been kidnapped." Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, "Is it the state preceptor?" Fatso nodded. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Didn't I tell you to tell them to be careful?" Fat Lord said so. But the state preceptor is so powerful. Even if Li Yin is in the main pagoda, it's easy to kidnap her. Fatso said bitterly. "Where are you now?" Qin Feiyang asked. Fatso said, "The trading pavilion's lounge. I'll be right there." Qin Feiyang turned off the image crystal and turned to look at Lu Hong, Wolf King, and the other beasts. Everyone had already opened their eyes and looked at him worriedly, because it was already obvious that the state preceptor was here for Qin Feiyang. "Don't worry, nothing will happen." Qin Feiyang comforted everyone and left the ancient castle, opening a teleportation gate. "Where are you going?" Mu Qing had been waiting outside and asked when she saw Qin Feiyang come out. "Trading pavilion," Qin Feiyang casually said and stepped into the teleportation gate. Mu Qing raised her eyebrows and followed him into the teleportation gate. Because from Qin Feiyang's expression, she knew that something big must have happened. Trading pavilion. In the lounge, Fatso stood in front of the desk, frowning. Yinwei, on the other hand, sat beside the coffee table and comforted Li He. Whoosh! Two figures appeared out of thin air. They were Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. Coming. Fatso immediately went up to them. Qin Feiyang glanced at Li He and asked, "What's going on?" "We had something to do just now, so we left Li Yin alone in the lounge." She also said that she would go back to the main tower immediately, but when Li He came back, he found a letter on the desk. Fatso grabbed a piece of letter from the desk behind him and handed it to Qin Feiyang. "I've already read it. The letter says that Li He should go to the Black Cloud Mountain and exchange the origin of the Juku Yellow Dragon Pill for Li Yin." Fatso said, "Where is the Black Cloud Mountain?" Qin Feiyang asked. Li He said, "It's outside the city, about 5,000 miles away from the Divine City." After that, he raised his head and glared at Qin Feiyang and the others, saying, "Who on earth did you offend? Why do you want to deal with you by all means?" Qin Feiyang glanced at him and opened the letter. A line of small words immediately entered his sight. "What should we do now?" Fatso asked. Qin Feiyang clenched his hand and the letter was crushed on the spot, saying, "Didn't he come for me? I'll go and meet him." "No," Mu Qing said flatly. The Imperial Preceptor was so powerful that Qin Feiyang would not be able to return if he went alone. "Then how do you think we should solve it?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Mu Qing pondered for a while and looked at Yinwei, saying, "Go out with Li He to relax. Yin Er's life and death are unknown. Do you think I'm still in the mood?" Li He roared. Mu Qing smiled and said, "Don't worry. We promise that we will bring Li Yin back unscathed." "What guarantee do you have?" Li He sneered. Mu Qing raised his eyebrows and said gloomily, "If I tell you to go, then go. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Li He suddenly got up, his face full of anger. "Elderly, calm down, calm down. If you believe them and they say they can do it, then they can definitely do it. Besides, we can only rely on them now. Otherwise, Li Yin will really have no way to live." Yinwei also hurriedly got up to appease him. Li He glanced at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing, his expression uncertain. "Okay, I'll believe you this time, but in the end, if you don't bring Yin Er back, I will never let you go." In the end, Li He compromised. He flicked his sleeves and turned to walk outside. "Don't worry, I will appease him." Chapter 891. After Yinwei and Li He left, Fatso immediately stepped forward and closed the door. Mu Qing stretched out her hand and said, "Let me see the letter." Qin Feiyang handed it to Mu Qing. Mu Qing glanced at the contents and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, and Qin Feiyang and Fatso frowned. This letter only says to let Li He go to the Black Cloud Mountain, but it doesn't reveal your identity, so Li He still doesn't know who you are. Now what we need to do is to save Li Yin, and then find a way to send the Imperial Tutor away from the Forgotten Continent. Of course, it's best if we can kill him and get rid of all future troubles. Mu Qing said, "We all know this, but to do it is more difficult than ascending to the sky." Fatso said. Mu Qing shook her head and said, "It won't be too difficult. You guys go and delay him first. I'll go and make the arrangements." "Why do you still want to help me?" Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Qing and asked. "Just because of the Heaven Star Flame?" Although the Heaven Star Flame is very important, the Mu family also arranged for other people to sneak into the main tower. Even if something happened to him, there was still a chance. But now, in order to help him, Mu Qing didn't hesitate to become enemies with the Imperial Tutor. This kind of approach doesn't seem too wise. "I'm not helping you. I'm helping my Mu family. In addition, your current identity hasn't been exposed. So before going to the Black Cloud Mountain, you have to restore your true appearance." Mu Qing said lightly, opened a portal, and then told the coordinates of the Black Cloud Mountain to Qin Feiyang, turned around and left. "Help him?" Fatso was slightly stunned. Looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang's eyes narrowed slightly and said, "I think, in the eyes of the Mu family, I may be more than this." "You mean, besides the Heaven Star Flame, they are plotting something else? And these things may be related to you?" Fatso was bewildered. "Most likely. Forget it. We'll talk about this later. Let's go to Black Cloud Mountain first." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent Fatso to the castle. He then took out a facial restoring pill and popped it into his mouth. Very soon, he regained his true appearance, took off the uniform of the main tower, and changed into the clothes he usually wore. Next, without any hesitation, he opened a teleportation gate and strode in. Black Cloud Mountain had steep cliffs and precipitous cliffs. From afar, it looked like a huge pitch-black sword. Around the Black Cloud Mountain, there was an undulating mountain range. At this moment, at the peak of the Black Cloud Mountain, at the edge of a cliff, a red-robed old man stood facing the wind. His entire body emitted an unfathomable aura. Beside the old man, a woman in white was lying quietly on the ground. Her eyes were closed as if she had fallen into a deep sleep. They were none other than the disguised Grand Preceptor and Li Yin. Whoosh! Suddenly, a white figure descended from the sky above the mountain peak. "You've come," the Imperial Advisor said, but he did not turn his head. Looking down at the mountains and rivers below, his eyes were incomparably deep. Qin Feiyang glanced at Li Yin, who was lying on the ground, then looked at the back of the Imperial Advisor. He took a step forward and landed beside the Imperial Advisor. After a moment of silence, Qin Feiyang opened his mouth and asked, "Is it Father? Did the Emperor ask you to come?" The Imperial Advisor said, "Don't you already have the answer in your heart?" Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and said, "Does he hate me that much?" The Imperial Advisor said, "His Majesty's thoughts are not something you and I can guess." "That's right. Why else would it be said that since ancient times, emperors have been fickle and the most ruthless emperor family?" Qin Feiyang laughed at himself. This sentence was also the answer he gave to the person who played the zither. The Imperial Advisor was silent for a while, then said, "I heard that you snatched the Ice Flame, the Heaven Star Flame, and the mysterious Sky Flame? Why do you ask?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. It is said that on this forgotten continent, there is an ancient miracle, and these elixir flames are the key to summoning and opening the miracle. The Imperial Advisor said, "You actually know?" Qin Feiyang frowned. The Imperial Advisor said, "This is not a secret in our Imperial Palace, because your ancestor, the first emperor, has been to this miracle." "What?" Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. "Let me tell you one more thing. This miracle is not an ordinary place. The disappearance of the first emperor is related to this miracle." The Imperial Advisor said, "Really?" Qin Feiyang suddenly turned his head and stared at the imperial advisor. Yes. The imperial advisor nodded and finally withdrew his gaze. He turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said, "But this time I'm not here for this miracle, but for the Chang Shui and the castle on you." The imperial advisor's eyes were very calm, and his tone was also very calm. However, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel his scalp tingle. He decisively took a few steps back, keeping a distance from the imperial advisor. "You don't have to do this. This old man is not here to kill you. As long as you are willing to hand over Chang Shui and the castle, and swear never to return to the great Qin Empire, this old man will immediately turn and leave." The imperial advisor said with sincerity. "Impossible." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "In this world, there is nothing impossible." The imperial advisor chuckled and said, "Don't forget, your mother is still in my hands." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent and said in a deep voice, "If you dare to touch a single hair of hers, I will never let you go. You are still so naive. If you really have the ability, why would you watch your mother suffer endless pain in the divine prison? You don't seem to have been in the divine prison. This old man might as well tell you that there is a thunder tribulation that can shatter mountains and rivers, a sea of fire that can burn everything, a cold current that can penetrate the bone marrow, and a storm that can strangle everything. An ordinary person would have a mental breakdown and commit suicide in less than a day. As for your mother, she has been trapped in the divine prison for several years. You can imagine how she has endured all these years," the imperial advisor said. "Bastard." Hearing these words, Qin Feiyang's eyes instantly turned red, and he rushed madly toward the imperial advisor. Although the divine prison was at the back mountain of the imperial palace, he had never been there. He had never thought that it would be such a terrifying place. "Humph." The imperial advisor snorted coldly, reached out his old hand, grabbed Qin Feiyang's neck, and twisted it high. "It's too easy to kill you. So, don't test my patience." The imperial advisor smiled contemptuously and threw Qin Feiyang casually. Like a meteorite, he smashed into a huge rock. Boom! The huge rock shattered on the spot. Qin Feiyang was also bleeding from his head. He climbed up in a sorry state and stared at the imperial advisor. "Actually, I have to admit that you were really tough. Back then, the commander of the invincible Black Army ambushed you, but you didn't die." The imperial advisor looked him up and down and shook his head. Qin Feiyang said, "At that time, he really thought that I was dead. But why did you come to the Forgotten Continent?" "Because of Chang Shui and the ancient castle. Even if you are dead, I must get these two things, so I came. Fortunately, I came. Otherwise, I wouldn't know that you are still living happily." The imperial advisor smiled, and his smile was a little creepy. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, "Do you know the origin of Chang Shui and the ancient castle?" "I don't know. However, I know one thing. Those two items are both heaven-defying divine artifacts." The imperial advisor's eyes were full of greed. "They really are divine artifacts." Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. "Hurry up. Now, not only the woman in front of you, but also the fate of your mother, the old man you respect the most, and the woman who let you enter the Forgotten Continent to snatch the heavenly thunder fire. Whether they can live or not depends on your decision now," the imperial advisor said. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Soon, he thought of it. The old man that the imperial advisor was talking about must be Ren Wushuang's grandfather, and that woman, without a doubt, was the ugly old woman who fed him the black demon poison time and time again. "What did you do to them?" Qin Feiyang roared, almost going crazy. "They let you come to the Forgotten Continent behind His Majesty's back. This is a great crime of deceiving the emperor, so they are now in the god's prison. As for the others, such as Ren Wushuang, Lu Xingchen, and those who are close to you, they are fine for now. But if you are stubborn, I'm afraid that you will also taste the pain of the god's prison," the imperial advisor said with a smile. "You are an inhumane old bastard." Qin Feiyang roared angrily. His heart was bleeding. He was also blaming himself. He did not expect that he would implicate so many people. "Haha, inhumane? Then tell me, What is the use of being humane? In this world, only with a strong fist can you control the fate of others. Do you understand? In general, you are still not mature enough, too naive. The imperial advisor mocked. Do you remember that I only gave you a year's time? However, before the imperial advisor finished speaking, a cold voice suddenly came from the distant sky. This was a woman's voice, with a great majesty. Boom. Following closely, a magnificent aura swept across the sky and approached from the distance. Damn it! The imperial advisor's face changed. Qin Feiyang was also very surprised. That pressure was even stronger than the imperial advisor's. Whoosh! The next moment, the imperial advisor took a step forward, raised his big old hand, like an eagle's claw, and grabbed at Qin Feiyang. How amazing was the imperial advisor's speed! Even if Qin Feiyang was prepared, he could not hide in the castle in time. Boom! In the nick of time, that pressure roared and slammed into the imperial advisor's body. Puff! The imperial advisor spurted out a mouthful of blood on the spot, and his whole body was directly blasted out. However, that oppressive might actually did not harm Qin Feiyang and Li Yin. Qin Feiyang hurriedly ran to Li Yin and sent her to the castle. Then, he turned around and saw a white flowing light breaking through the sky like lightning. That was a snow python, which was dozens of meters long. Its whole body was snow-white, as if it was carved out of a peerless jade. Swish! The snow python stopped above Qin Feiyang, looking at Qin Feiyang with its jade-like eyes. Senior, thank you for helping me. Qin Feiyang bowed. He could not be more familiar with this snow python. It was the snow python that guarded the altar in the glacier forest. The snow python looked at the imperial advisor and said coldly, I am not helping you, his time is up. Time? Qin Feiyang was stunned. What did it mean? I will give the people of the great Qin Empire a time limit to enter the Forgotten Continent. The last time the commander of the invincible Black Army came, I only gave him a month. As for the imperial tutor, I gave him a year's time. When the time is up, he must return to the great Qin Empire. And now, it has been more than a year. Chapter 892. There is such a thing? Qin Feiyang was a little confused. At the same time, the imperial preceptor was also stable in the void, pointing to Qin Feiyang and roaring, I don't accept it. Why is there no time limit for him to enter the Forgotten Continent? This was also where Qin Feiyang was puzzled to know. Plus this time, it was already his second time entering the Forgotten Continent, and the snow python must have noticed him, but why didn't it say anything? He's different, the snow python said. What's the difference? The imperial preceptor said angrily. The snow python said, he opened the purple gold dragon soul. Just because of this? The imperial preceptor was a little flustered. The snow python said impatiently, don't talk nonsense, leave with me immediately. What if I say no? The imperial preceptor stared at it gloomily. You don't have the qualification to say no. The snow python was domineering. Its pressure was like a waterfall, and it rushed to the imperial preceptor. Let me go. The imperial preceptor struggled at once, but he couldn't break free from the snow python's pressure, and was taken away by the snow python. What's the situation? Qin Feiyang scratched his head, looking at the snow python and the imperial preceptor who were quickly disappearing. He couldn't recover for a long time. Suck. But when he came back to his senses, he couldn't help but take a breath. The imperial preceptor was a fake god. There was no doubt about it. But in front of the snow python, he didn't have the slightest resistance. How strong is this snow python's power? Is it a god? To be honest, he had already guessed that the snow python was very strong, but he didn't expect it to be strong to this extent. However, Qin Feiyang, who was in shock, didn't notice that there was a figure hidden near the black cloud mountain. But that person was covered in a layer of golden light, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. He stood in a dense forest, and seemed to be looking at the snow python and the imperial preceptor. However, after the snow python and the imperial preceptor disappeared, he also disappeared, leaving no trace. About 100 breaths passed. Shwa. Another 3 figures descended over the black cloud mountain. It was Mu Qing, the second ancestor of the Mu family, and the ancestor of the Mu family. What's the situation? The three of them had arrived aggressively, but when they saw that there was only Qin Feiyong at the top of the mountain, their expressions turned to one of astonishment. Didn't you say that the imperial advisor of the great Qin Empire is here? Where is he? The great ancestor of the Mu family asked. He's here. Mu Qing's mind was also a mess. Whoosh. The three of them landed beside Qin Feiyong one after another. Mu Qing asked, Where is he? By the time you came to help, I would have been dead. Qin Feiyong glanced at the three of them indifferently. Mu Jia's second forefather frowned. Get to the point. Qin Feiyong ignored him. He sat on the edge of the cliff with an indescribable agitation in his heart. The three of them looked at each other in confusion. Mu Qing seemed to have suddenly thought of something and asked cautiously, Don't tell me you've reached an agreement with him? What do you think I can reach with him? Qin Feiyong sneered. He just wanted to kill the imperial advisor now. Then why didn't he kill you? Mu Qing said in a deep voice. This matter was too strange, and he had to figure it out. It's none of your business. You just need to know that he has returned to the great Qin Empire. Also, I want to calm down now, so don't bother me. Qin Feiyong waved his hand without any annoyance. Heard it. The Mu Jia's great forefather and second forefather's old faces were filled with anger. They came to help out of kindness, but he treated them with such an attitude. Mu Qing hurriedly stood behind Qin Feiyong and smiled. Two great forefathers, please calm down. You go back first. I'll accompany him here. Humph. The two of them snorted coldly, opened a portal, and walked in without looking back. Mu Qing also turned around and sat beside Qin Feiyong. He did not disturb Qin Feiyong and lowered his head to think about something. At the same time, inside the castle, Li Yin, who was lying on the ground, suddenly murmured, and her eyelids moved. Wolf King raised his eyebrows and hit Li Yin on the back of her head with his paw. Li Yin fainted on the spot again. Then Wolf King looked at Fatso and the others and said, How do you think little Qin Zi is feeling now? Lu Hong said, Needless to say, he must be in pain and remorseful. This damn emperor, does he really not care about friendship? Wolf King said angrily. The pangolin sneered, Don't worry, one day, he will regret it. In fact, in a word, we are still not strong enough. Fatso sighed. Wolf King and the other beasts nodded. If their strength was enough to compete with the great Qin Empire, this shit would not have happened at all. However, they had worked hard. Their current cultivation speed was not slow. But even so, they could not become as powerful as the emperor in a short time. They still needed time. At the top of the mountain, as time passed, the sun was about to set. Mu Qing, who had been silent, looked up at the setting sun and finally asked, Did you learn something from the state preceptor? Qin Feiyong nodded silently. Some things have already come to this. What's the use of worrying here? It's better to find a way to get close to the Chief Tower Master and get the Tiangang flame. When you go to the miracle, I promise, your strength will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. Mu Qing said, Is that so? Qin Feiyong turned to look at him. Of course. Mu Qing nodded. Qin Feiyong said, What if I tell you that Lu Xingqian is in a dangerous situation now? What will you do? What? Mu Qing suddenly stood up. Looking at Mu Qing's reaction, Qin Feiyong sneered. It seems that the relationship between the Mu family and Lu Xingqian is really not ordinary, but Mu Qing completely turned a blind eye to this and said in a deep voice, That's impossible. Lu Xingqian has a space divine item. The state preceptor can't catch him at all. It seemed that in his eyes, nothing else was important. He only cared about Lu Xingqian's safety. Qin Feiyong's heart skipped a beat. It's true that Lu Xingqian has a space divine item, but the state preceptor is a fake god after all. As long as the distance is not too far, he can sense it. What's more, the state preceptor told me personally that Lu Xingqian has been locked up in the divine prison. You have to believe that the state preceptor has no need to lie to me. And the environment in the divine prison is very bad. It is said that it is enough to make a person so desperate that he will commit suicide. Damn it. Mu Qing clenched his fists, making a cracking sound. If you're really worried, you can go to your ancestor and open the Real space-time gate to rescue Lu Xingqian. Qin Feiyong said. He did this for two purposes. First, he wanted to find out whether there was a fake god or a god in the Mu family. Second, he also wanted to go back and have a look. But if he went back alone, it was tantamount to sending a sheep to the tiger's mouth. On the contrary, if the Mu family helped, the danger could be minimized. However, hearing Qin Feiyang's words, Mu Qing began to doubt. He stared at Qin Feiyang's face and said, "Do you swear that what you said is true?" "Do I still need to swear?" "You can imagine that anyone who is related to me is in a very bad situation now," Qin Feiyang said. Mu Qing's face became gloomy again, and he was struggling in his heart. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "I'll go back first. You go back to the main tower by yourself." After saying that, he opened the portal and quickly rushed in. "You can't beat me after all." Looking at the dissipating portal, Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and followed to the castle. When he saw Li Yin lying on the ground, his body suddenly stiffened. He saw that on Li Yan's head, there were 4 or 5 pebble-sized meat bumps. "What's going on?" He looked at Fatso, Lu Hong, and Wolf King. "It's all because of you." Wolf King rolled his eyes. "Me?" Qin Feiyang pointed to his nose, stunned. "It's not your fault. After all, you know so many things. You really need to calm down. But this woman, we definitely can't let her see us in the castle, otherwise she will guess your identity." So, every time she woke up, Brother Wolf went up and gave her a claw. "See, it's like this now." Lu Hong laughed. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard this. Wolf King said, "Don't talk about her, let's talk about you. Are you really going to go back?" Qin Feiyang said, "If the Mujia's people are going, I will definitely go back. It's too dangerous." Wolf King was worried. "I understand. But knowing that my mother and grandfather are suffering in the prison, how can I be indifferent? In fact, I didn't lie to Mu Qing. Lu Xingchen's situation is really dangerous now." Qin Feiyang sighed. "What do you mean?" Wolf King was suspicious. This time, the state preceptor didn't get Chang Shui in the castle. When he returns to the Great Qin Empire, he will definitely be angry. At that time, Lu Xingchen and Ren Wushuang will inevitably become the target of his anger. Qin Feiyang said. "That makes sense." Lu Hong nodded. "The road ahead is long, and the safety is unpredictable. Let's take it one step at a time. I will send Li Yin back first." Qin Feiyang sighed deeply, consumed an illusory form pill, and changed his appearance into the appearance of Ancestor Mu. Then, he carried Li Yin and left the ancient castle, opened a teleportation door, and walked in. "It's dark. Why haven't they come back yet?" Li He was like an ant on a hot pan, walking back and forth in the lounge, anxious and restless. "Can you stop pacing? My head is almost dizzy because of you." Yinwei sat at the coffee table, also quite annoyed. "It's been a whole day. Qin Feiyang still hasn't come back. What the hell is going on?" Whoosh! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang came to the lounge with Li Yin in his arms. Li He and Yinwei looked up, and their faces were suddenly filled with ecstasy. Li He hurriedly ran over, took Li Yin from Qin Feiyang's hands, and checked Li Yan's injuries. Yinwei also walked to Qin Feiyang's side, looked at the dried blood on Qin Feiyang's body, and asked, "Did anything happen?" "No." Qin Feiyang smiled. Yinwei finally let out a sigh of relief. "Kid, what's going on?" Suddenly, Li He turned his head to look at Qin Feiyang, pointed to the bulge on Li Yan's head, and frowned. "I don't know. It's like this when I went. She should have been beaten by that old man." Qin Feiyang said without blushing and directly pushed the blame to the imperial preceptor. "Damn bastard. Don't let me catch him." Chapter 893. Qin Feiyang glanced at Li Yin, then looked at Li He and said, "The person has been safely handed over to you. I should go back?" "Wait," Li He hurriedly said. "Who is that person?" "Don't worry, he won't appear again." Qin Feiyang did not answer directly, nor did he continue to stay. He took Fatso out of the castle and opened the teleportation door to leave. Li He frowned, looked at Fatso and Yinwei, and said, "Who are you guys? Why are you so mysterious all day?" "Of course we are good people." Fatso chuckled. Returning to the first pagoda, Qin Feiyang felt that something was wrong. In the past, the disciples of the first pagoda were basically in seclusion in the alchemy room, and it was difficult to see anyone. But now, everyone had basically come out and crowded in the corridor. At the same time, when these disciples saw Qin Feiyang, their eyes also changed, with envy, jealousy, and a trace of respect. What's the situation? Qin Feiyang was full of doubts. Soon, he came to the bottom of the patio, which was even more crowded, and everyone's eyes were fixed on the top floor. Qin Feiyang looked over and saw a familiar figure standing in front of the railing outside his alchemy room. Him? Qin Feiyang was quite surprised. This person was none other than young Master Hao. He finally understood why everyone ran out of the alchemy room. It turned out that young Master Hao had come to the first pagoda. What are you still doing here? Young Master Hao has been waiting for you for half an hour. Suddenly, Mo Feng's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's ears. Waiting for me? Qin Feiyang turned his head to look. He didn't know when Mo Feng came to his side. You still don't know? Mo Feng frowned. I don't know, Qin Feiyang said. Mo Feng rolled his eyes and said speechlessly, You're the first person who dares to make young Master Hao wait for so long. Quickly go up. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He jumped to the top floor and landed in front of young Master Hao. He cupped his hands and smiled. Greetings, young Master. Young Master Hao sized him up and frowned. I didn't expect it to be so difficult to meet you. There was a hint of dissatisfaction in his tone. It's my fault. It's my fault. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and apologized repeatedly. Young Master Hao glanced at him helplessly and said, Let's talk inside. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded, turned around and opened the stone door of the alchemy room, then stepped aside. Qin Feiyang followed young Master Hao in and closed the stone door behind him. Young Master Hao looked around the alchemy room, then turned to Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Thank you so much for today. Qin Feiyang was startled, then said with a faint smile, It's nothing. It's nothing. Young Master Hao sighed deeply and said, It's nothing, but it has fulfilled my long-cherished wish, so I must thank you properly. Qin Feiyang said, So you're saying that you've successfully seen her true appearance? Yes, I've seen her. She's very beautiful. Young Master Hao nodded with a face full of infatuation. Then congratulations. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. Young Master Hao collected himself and said, Tell me, how do you want me to repay you? Qin Feiyang hesitated for a while, then made up his mind and said, I want to become the disciple of the Chief Tower Master. Young Master Hao raised his eyebrows and said in a low voice, So you came to help me with a purpose. Qin Feiyang didn't mind at all. He said with a faint smile, There's no free lunch in this world. You should have heard of this saying. The five-colored crystal was with the Chief Tower Master. Only by becoming his disciple would he have a better chance. Young Master Hao laughed, but it was a sneer. I've also learned about your situation. Level 11 mind power. And in the Chief Tower, there are plenty of people with stronger mind power than you. What qualifications do you have to become my father's disciple? These words could be said to be merciless. My qualifications? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, took out a pill from his pocket, and threw it to young Master Hao. Young Master Hao caught it in his hand and looked down. His eyes were full of surprise. It was actually the Juku Yellow Dragon pill. Whoosh! He suddenly raised his head and stared at Qin Feiyang, saying, The Juku Yellow Dragon pill auctioned in the trading pavilion was made by you? Qin Feiyang nodded. This. Young Master Hao was so shocked that he couldn't speak. The appearance of the Juku Yellow Dragon pill not only alarmed others, but also the Chief Tower Master, including him. He had also been investigating the source of the Juku Yellow Dragon pill, but he had been unable to find any clues. Of course, he had also sent someone to ask Li He, but Li He was also tight-lipped. However, he didn't expect that the mysterious person who refined the Juku Yellow Dragon pill was right in front of him. After a while, young Master Hao came to his senses and looked at the 5 patterns on the Juku Yellow Dragon pill, saying, So, your mind power is not only at level 11? Isn't this obvious? Qin Feiyang smiled. Why hide it? Young Master Hao frowned. I want to keep a low profile. Qin Feiyong said. Haha. Hearing this, young Master Hao couldn't help but laugh, saying, You just entered the Central Divine Kingdom, humiliated Guo Ming in public, and fell out with Fu Anshan. Is this what you mean by keeping a low profile? Qin Feiyong touched his nose and said, Some people just like to take the initiative to put their face forward. If you don't hit him, he will feel uncomfortable. Young Master Hao was stunned and shook his head with a smile, saying, You are very interesting. But even if you can refine the Juku Yellow Dragon Pill, it will be very difficult to become my father's disciple. Then what else do you need? Qin Feiyong asked. Answer me first. Since you want to keep a low profile, why do you still want to become my father's disciple? Young Master Hao said. After becoming the disciple of the Chief Tower Master, his identity would be different, and he would be respected by thousands. This was completely against this person's wishes. Qin Feiyong said, I want to become stronger and get better cultivation resources. Your ambition is not small. Young Master Hao looked at him meaningfully. If a man doesn't have any ambition, is he still a man? Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. That's true. But I can't help you much in this matter, because my father is very arrogant. He may not listen to me. I can only recommend you. As for whether you can succeed in the end, it depends on your luck. Young Master Hao said. Qin Feiyong was secretly happy and cupped his hands, saying, Thank you, young master. Okay, it's time for me to go. As for this Juku Yellow Dragon Pill, I have to take it to my father. Maybe it will help you. Young Master Hao said, opened the teleportation door, and walked in without looking back. After watching young Master Hao leave, Qin Feiyong also put on a bright smile on his face. Fortunately, he went to the Dragon Phoenix house today. Otherwise, he didn't know when he would be able to make friends with young Master Hao. Buzz. At this moment, the image crystal in Qin Feiyong's arms made a sound. Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned, and then his eyes flashed. It was most likely Mu Qing. He took out the image crystal, and his battle chi surged, and a shadow quickly condensed. It was indeed Mu Qing. What's wrong? Qin Feiyong asked with a smile. We're going to the Great Qin Empire. Do you want to go back with us? Mu Qing asked. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed, and he said, Who are the people? Mu Qing said impatiently, Don't ask so many questions. Just tell me if you're going or not. It's very dangerous. Qin Feiyong frowned. Of course he had to go back, but he had to be more tactful. Otherwise, with Mu Qing's mind, he would definitely find some clues. Mu Qing said, We're just going to check out the situation. We won't do anything. What danger can there be? I see. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and nodded. Go, when do we set off? Wait for us at the Black Cloud Mountain tomorrow morning. After Mu Qing finished speaking, the shadow quickly disintegrated. Us? Qin Feiyong was stunned, and then he smiled. These two words revealed a lot of information. Because, if Mu Qing was alone, he would definitely say, Wait for me at the Black Cloud Mountain, instead of saying, Wait for us at the Black Cloud Mountain. In other words, Mu Qing was not the only one on this trip to the Great Qin Empire. Next, Qin Feiyong walked into the cultivation room, took out the soul refining technique, sat cross-legged on the ground, and continued to comprehend. A day passed quickly. The next day, early morning, Qin Feiyong opened his eyes, and there was a trace of confusion in his eyes. Another day and night of comprehension, but he still did not gain anything. He could not help but start to wonder if this soul-refining technique was really what he thought it was. Or was it just like what Elder Wong said? This was a kind of battle art that was even worse than a low-grade one and had no value at all? Sigh. Forget it for now. He sighed deeply, put away the soul-refining technique, got up, washed up, and prepared to go to the Black Cloud Mountain. Dong. But at this moment, there was a knock on the door. Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned. He walked to the door of the alchemy room, opened the stone door suspiciously, and saw a young man in purple standing outside. His pupils shrank when he saw this person. This person looked very young and held a jade flute in his hand. He looked elegant, but his aura made Qin Feiyong feel inexplicably terrified. It was enough to show that this was a very terrifying expert. The young man in purple sized up Qin Feiyong and asked, You're that kid surnamed Mu? Qin Feiyang nodded and said, "Yes, may I ask who you are?" Gongsun Bei. The young man in purple reported his name. Qin Feiyang frowned. Why did this name sound so familiar? Suddenly, he remembered. The last time he came out of seclusion, Fatso told him that there was a person called Gongsun Bei who was leading people to investigate the mysterious lady and him. In other words, the person in front of him was the person Fatso mentioned. Qin Feiyang's expression immediately became respectful. He cupped his hands and said, "May I know why you're looking for this disciple?" Gongsun Bei walked into the alchemy room, closed the stone door, and said, "Did you really refine the Juku Yellow Dragon pill?" Qin Feiyang nodded. He didn't expect young master how to be so efficient. Seeing Qin Feiyang admit it, Gongsun Bei's face also had a hint of surprise. He asked, "Then your spiritual energy?" Level 20. Qin Feiyang said truthfully, "TSK, TSK, TSK. Gongsun Bei was speechless. He said, "I really didn't expect you to hide it so well. Level 20 spiritual energy, this is the first time I've seen it." "Thank you for the compliment," Qin Feiyang said. "I'm not complimenting you. In the history of the Forgotten Continent, only one person's spiritual energy has exceeded level 20. Gongsun Bei said. "Who?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. Exceeding level 20. This meant that the spiritual energy was higher than his. Who was so monstrous? Why hadn't he heard of it? Our previous chief tower master, but he has already passed away. Chapter 894. Step into the Battle Saint realm in 2 years? Qin Feiyang was stunned. "I know it's difficult and almost impossible, but to become the disciple of the chief pagoda master, you have to do it," Gongsun Bei said. "Difficult?" Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Stepping into the Battle Saint realm in 2 years was indeed an impossible task for others, but for him, it was simply too easy. Don't force yourself. In fact, with your alchemy talent, even without the guidance of the chief pagoda master, you can still make some achievements. Gongsun Bei laughed. Seeing Qin Feiyang not speak for a long time, he thought that Qin Feiyang was not confident. "Okay, disciple will definitely step into the Battle Saint realm in 2 years." Qin Feiyang nodded and said solemnly. Gongsun Bei was stunned. He thought Qin Feiyang would give up, but he didn't expect him to agree. He really couldn't figure out where this kid's confidence came from. "In that case, work hard. There's one more question. Where did you get the Juku Yellow Dragon pill recipe?" Gongsun Bei asked, his eyes shining. "This is disciple's personal privacy, maybe. It's not convenient to disclose." When young Master Hao took away the Juku Yellow Dragon pill, Qin Feiyang had already thought that the chief pagoda master would definitely ask about the origin of the pill. So, he had already thought of a way to deal with it. The only thing he was worried about now was whether the chief pagoda master would force him to hand over the pill recipe. Hearing this, Gongsun Bei also fell silent. A pair of eyes stared straight at Qin Feiyang. The atmosphere at the scene gradually became solemn. Hee. Suddenly, Gongsun Bei laughed and said, "I already guessed that you would answer me like this. Don't worry, my chief pagoda will not force any disciple to do anything." "Thank you, Lord." Qin Feiyang bowed and thanked him. "Work hard." Gongsun Bei patted him on the shoulder and opened a teleportation door. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, "Lord, I can refine the Juku Yellow Dragon pill. I hope you can keep it a secret." "We know that. Apart from me, the chief pagoda master, and the young master, no one else will know." Gongsun Bei smiled faintly, turned around, and entered the portal, quickly disappearing. What he was worried about didn't happen. Qin Feiyang was finally relieved. Next, he took out an image crystal and sent a message to Fatso. As soon as Fatso's shadow appeared, Qin Feiyang asked, "Do you want to go back?" "Back to where?" Fatso looked at him suspiciously. "Great Qin Empire." Qin Feiyang enunciated every word clearly. Fatso said, "So, Mu Qing has taken the bait? Don't waste time. Make a decision quickly." Qin Feiyang urged. Fatso said, "I do want to go back, but what if the person who bought the herbs appears? Isn't there still Yinwei? Tell him to keep an eye on them." Qin Feiyong said. Okay, I'll go tell him right away. Wait for me. Fatso nodded and turned off the image crystal. Black Cloud Mountain. As the sun rose, everything came back to life. Swoosh. Two figures descended above Black Cloud Mountain. One of them was Mu Qing. The other person was wearing a black robe with a hat on his head that covered his entire body. On his face, there was also a black mask that covered his entire face. Only a pair of eyes were exposed. It was very mysterious. Why isn't he here yet? Mu Qing looked around and didn't see Qin Feiyong's figure. She couldn't help but frown. Qing, I don't understand. Why did you specially bring Qin Feiyong along? The black-robed man asked. His voice was slightly hoarse. It was obvious that he was an old man. Mu Qing said, We brought him along just in case. The Emperor of the Great Qin Empire and the Grand Tutor want him. If Lu Xingqian is really trapped, we'll hand him over. That's a good idea. The black-robed old man nodded thoughtfully and said, However, he's still very useful to us. I know. However, compared to Qin Feiyong, Lu Xingqian is more important, Mu Qing said in a low voice. However, before she finished speaking, the black-robed old man's eyes flashed. He looked up at the sky and said, Someone's coming. Mu Qing immediately stopped talking and looked up. Whoosh. In the next moment, two figures appeared in the sky at the same time. They were Qin Feiyong and Fatso. When they saw the black-robed old man, their eyes immediately trembled. This person didn't have any aura, but he gave them an unprecedented sense of danger. Mu Qing frowned and said, Can you guys not be so slow when doing things? You talk too much. Fatso rolled her eyes at him. Whoosh. The two of them landed on the mountain peak. Qin Feiyong glanced at the black-robed old man, then looked at Mu Qing and asked, This is? You can call him Yiglao. Don't ask too much. Mu Qing said. Yiglao. Qin Feiyong and Fatso cupped their hands at the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man also nodded at the two of them. Mu Qing looked around and said respectfully, Yiglao, please open the space-time gate. Boom. As soon as she finished speaking, a terrifying aura rushed out of Yiglao's body. Immediately after, a divine light swept out from between Yiglao's eyebrows. It was a palm-sized stone door. It was bronze in color and emitted a dazzling light. Retreat. Mu Qing shouted and quickly retreated. Qin Feiyong and Fatso looked at the space-time gate in surprise and retreated into the distance. The black-robed old man asked, Are we going directly to the imperial capital or somewhere else? Let's go to the imperial capital, Mu Qing said without hesitation. Fatso said, No, let's go to Cloud State first. Mu Qing turned to look at Fatso and raised her eyebrows slightly. It's time to settle some scores, Fatso said in a deep voice. His eyes flashed with a shocking cold light. Qin Feiyong glanced at him, then looked at Mu Qing and said, Let's go to Cloud State first. He knew why Fatso wanted to go to Cloud State first. Kill the governor of Cloud State. Perhaps this was the main reason why Fatso returned to the Great Qin Empire. Mu Qing glanced at the two of them and said, I think I need to make it clear to you that the space-time gate can only be used once a day. Don't you still have a fake space-time gate? When we go to Cloud State and fulfill Fatso's long-cherished wish, we can use the fake space-time gate to go to the imperial capital. It won't take much time. Qin Feiyong said. So troublesome. Mu Qing grumbled in annoyance and nodded to the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man said, Give me the coordinates. Qin Feiyong immediately gave the coordinates of Cloud State to the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man raised his arm and pointed his index finger at the space-time gate. A dazzling battle aura gushed out from his fingertip and poured into the space-time gate. When the battle aura surged, the three of them felt a mighty divine aura surging out in all directions. This is, Qin Feiyong's eyes widened. He had encountered such a divine aura before. It was when he faced the imperial advisor. Didn't you say that your Mu family doesn't have any fake gods? Then who is he? He looked at Mu Qing, his eyes shining. Mu Qing glanced at him coldly and said nothing. She then looked at the black-robed old man. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and looked at Fatso. He didn't continue to ask. Clang. Suddenly, a loud sound exploded in this place. It was like rolling thunder, shaking the sky and the earth. The palm-sized space-time gate began to expand in the wind, emitting a dazzling light. It was like a scorching sun descending, and gradually filled with a wisp of divine aura. As the space-time gate grew bigger, the divine aura became more terrifying. The mountains, rivers, and earth began to tremble. The fierce beasts in the mountain stream crawled on the ground in fear. Qin Feiyang glanced at the trembling mountains and looked at the back of the black-robed old man. There was an imperceptible light in the depths of his eyes. Regardless of whether he could save his mother this time, at least he had figured out the foundation of the Mu family. Suddenly, he noticed that the black-robed old man's body was also trembling slightly, as if he was a little weak. What's going on? Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Qing. It takes a lot of energy to revive the space-time gate. Yiglao can only barely revive it. Mu Qing said in a low voice. There was a trace of worry between her eyebrows. Time passed breath by breath. Yiglao trembled more and more violently. Moreover, his body had also become thinner. This was caused by excessive consumption of blood and qi. Fatso said, if he can't be revived, I'm afraid he will be sucked dry by the space-time gate. Don't worry. Although it's difficult, he can still be revived. Because last time, when Shui and I went to the Nine Nether Underworld, it was Yiglao who revived the space-time gate, but after that, he needs to recuperate. Mu Qing said. Qin Feiyang and Fatso looked at each other. They didn't expect that it would be so difficult for a fake god to revive a divine artifact. Revive. About 100 breaths. Yiglao suddenly shouted. The space-time gate, accompanied by a loud sound, expanded to several feet high, releasing a shocking aura. At this moment, the void shattered, and the earth sank. The black cloud mountain also shattered in an instant, turning into ashes. Let's go. Following closely, Yiglao shouted in a low voice, turned into a stream of light, and rushed into the space-time gate without looking back. Is he going to? Qin Feiyang asked. Nonsense. The Imperial Preceptor already knows that you are in the Forgotten Continent. The teleportation altar in the Butterfly Valley must be heavily guarded. If Yiglao doesn't go, how can we come back? Mu Qing rolled her eyes at him and rushed towards the space-time gate. Qin Feiyang and Fatso looked at each other and quickly followed. Finally, the three of them entered the space-time gate one after another. And at this moment, the golden figure that appeared again and again appeared in the distant void, looking at the space-time gate. The golden light enveloped his entire body. His face couldn't be seen clearly, and it was impossible to guess what he was thinking at this moment. When the space-time gate disappeared, he disappeared without a trace again. At the same time, Cloud State, above the city. Boom. Clang. A series of loud sounds suddenly resounded. In the sky, the wind and clouds were surging. What's going on? The people in the city gathered on the streets, looking at the sky. Look, that void is broken. Suddenly, someone pointed to a certain place in the sky, only to see that the void there was crazily cracking inch by inch. The void is broken. Could it be that some rare treasure has appeared? Chapter 895. The wind howled and the void cracked. It was a terrifying scene. Everyone thought that some kind of supreme treasure had appeared in this world. Whoosh! 11 figures flew into the sky and stood above the city. The leader was a white-haired old woman. She was as thin as a match and her eyes were sunken. There was a hint of viciousness between her eyebrows. She was the Yun State Mansion Master. The 10 people behind her were men and women. All of them looked middle-aged and their auras were very powerful. There was no doubt. They were the 10 commanders of Yun State. The 11 of them stood in the sky and looked at the broken void. Their eyes were filled with shock. Clang. Suddenly, accompanied by an earth-shattering boom, a bronze stone door appeared in the shattered space. The stone door shone brightly and illuminated the sky. What a powerful aura! That must be a treasure. Everyone stared at the stone door and their eyes were filled with greed. The Yun State Mansion Master and the 10 commanders looked at each other with greed in their eyes. However, just as they were about to rush in, 4 figures appeared in the stone door. There are more people? Everyone was once again bewildered, their gazes firmly fixed on the four figures. The four figures walked out step by step, and their faces became clearer. Finally, the four of them walked out of the stone door and stood in the sky. The leader was an old man in a black robe and a black mask on his face. He looked mysterious. The other three were young, and they also had an extraordinary aura. Who are they? What a terrifying aura! Everyone's pupils shrank when they looked at the four of them. The Yun State Mansion Master and the 10 commanders were even more shocked. Due to the fact that they were stronger than the others, they were able to sense the danger brought forth by those four people even more. Especially the old man in the black robe. In the eyes of the Yun State Mansion Master and the others, he was like the god of death. They're finally back. One of the young men in white looked at the sky and muttered to himself, "Yes, everyone is here." One of them nodded and glanced at the four of them. His eyes were filled with coldness. "Who are you?" The Yun State Mansion Master swallowed and asked carefully, "Who are we?" The young man in white mumbled, "We are your nightmares." The Yun State Manor Lord frowned. What did he mean by that? Why couldn't he understand? "Don't worry. You'll understand soon." The white-robed young man grinned. He took out a facial restoration pill and threw it into his mouth. The young man next to him chuckled and swallowed a facial restoration pill. Immediately, their appearances quickly changed. A short while later, two familiar faces and two familiar figures appeared in the sight of the Yun State Mansion Master. Qin Feiyang. Situ Tianyu. It's you. The Cloud State Mansion Master's expression changed drastically. The 10 commanders also turned pale with fright. The city was in an uproar. They still remembered clearly that when Qin Feiyang and his group broke into the Cloud State, they destroyed the 3 superfamilies of the state capital, the Xia family, the He family, and the Yuan family. That battle had even alarmed the prefecture lords of the various states. The past was still vivid in his mind. Everyone thought that these people would never come back. Who would have thought that a few years later, they would actually appear again? The most important thing was, now, all of the 9 states and 18 counties already knew that Qin Feiyang was the son of the emperor. Although he had been abolished as a prince, the blood of the emperor flowing in his body was indelible. Such a person was not someone they could afford to offend. Fatso sized up the Yun State Mansion Master and shook his head with a smile. "I thought you were very strong, but I didn't expect you to only be an 8-star war sect." An 8-star war sect was already very strong back then. Okay? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. Back then, not to mention the prefecture lords of the 9 states, even the commanders were like gods in their eyes. However, 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Now, it was these people's turn to look up to them. The Yun State Mansion Master's heart sank. She had long thought that this day would definitely come, but she didn't expect it to come so soon. What was even more unexpected was that Qin Feiyang and the others' cultivation base had advanced so quickly. Now, even she, as the prefecture lord, was powerless to fight against these people. We have already explained what happened back then, and I have also publicly apologized. What else do you want? The Yun State Mansion Master said. Fat Lord didn't say anything. Yun State is Fat Lord's home. Can't Fat Lord come back? Fatso said. Yes, but now, you are wanted criminals. The Yun State Mansion Master said. Fat Lord knows that those old things in the imperial capital will definitely want us. But so what? Fatso smiled disdainfully. The Yun State Mansion Master's pupils contracted. Thinking back, this man was just the most mediocre descendant of the Situ family. Even the head of the Situ family, Fatso's biological father, didn't think highly of him. But now, he dared to challenge those big shots in the imperial capital. It was really hard to imagine that a person with mediocre aptitude could grow to this point. This was really like the old saying, "Don't bully a poor young man." Since you're back, we will naturally welcome you. Yun State will always be your home. At this moment, a burly man behind the Yun State Mansion Master said with a smile. This person was about 1.9 meters tall. His upper body was exposed, and his bronze-colored skin and bulging muscles were filled with a valiant aura. The fatty looked at the burly man, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. If I remember correctly, you are Imo Wushin's grandfather, Imo Jun. Am I right? Yes. Imo Jun nodded. We killed your grandson. Don't you hate us? Fatso teased. Imo Jun sighed deeply and said, the past is the past. What's there to hate? Of course, he hated them. But now, he had to suppress this hatred, because this was the only way to save his life. This was the only way to appease these people. As long as he could appease them temporarily, they would have a chance to report this matter to the imperial capital. When the people from the imperial capital arrived, the new and old grudges would be settled together. You sound sincere, but why doesn't Fat Lord believe you? Fatso looked at him mockingly. Imo Jun said, it doesn't matter if you believe me or not. I've already let go of this matter. But I haven't. Fatty suddenly roared. Like a mad beast, he stared deadly at the Cloud State Manor's lord and the others. Every time I sleep, I hear the screams and pleas of my clansmen, my father, my mother, my grandfather. Those familiar faces always appear in front of my eyes. Their faces are filled with helplessness and unwillingness. They seem to be asking me why the Situ clan is so loyal to Yun State, the Mansion Master, and the Great Qin Empire. But why did they end up like this? Do you know how I've been through all these years? Every day feels like a year, and I'm living a life worse than death. I've been thinking, why is the heavens so unfair? Not only were the good people framed and slaughtered, but they also had to bear the infamy for more than 10 years while the bad people were able to live freely in the world. In the end, I finally found the answer. This is the way of the world. You can't blame others. You can only blame yourself for being too useless. That's why I have to learn to be strong and become stronger. I want to trample all those who humiliated me under my feet. Fatso muttered to himself as a terrifying murderous aura gradually emanated from his body. Looking at Fatso, the Yun State Mansion Master and the 10 great commanders could not help but feel a sense of panic that could not be dispelled. The Yun State Mansion Master said, I'm very sorry about what happened to your Situ clan. But at first, I didn't know it was the He clan who framed you. Then why didn't you investigate clearly before giving the order? Fatso roared. The Yun State Mansion Master panicked. Fat Lord, let me tell you, why didn't you investigate? Because you are the high and mighty Mansion Master, and no matter how strong my Situ clan is, we are just a dog by your side. We are dispensable. Is that right? Fatso said. It's not like that. The Yun State Mansion Master shook his head. If you don't even dare to admit this, what right do you have to sit on the Mansion Master's seat? What right do you have to control the life and death of my Situ clan? You don't know right from wrong and don't understand reason. You bastards, all of you will die today. Fatso was furious, and the aura of a 9-star battle master erupted like a volcano. At the same time, he activated the dragon transformation art and transformed into his battle form. Run! The Yun State Mansion Master roared. With the cultivation of a 9-star battle master and the enhancement of a perfect battle art, no one in the entire Yun State could match him. No one can leave. Fatso roared, and like a violent beast, he crossed the void and landed in front of a commander with one step. No, he was now a dragon-shaped violent beast. The fan-sized dragon claw reached out and crushed the commander's head. Blood splattered across the sky. Too strong. Seeing this scene, the other 9 commanders trembled in fear. Their faces were pale, and they couldn't summon the slightest bit of courage to fight. The souls of my Situ clan need your blood as a sacrifice. Fatso's killing intent erupted. He attacked with both hands and instantly killed 2 more commanders. Blood dyed the void red. This. The people in the city below were scared out of their wits. In their eyes, the 10 commanders were invincible. But at this moment, in front of Situ Tianyu, they were like clay chickens and pottery dogs, unable to withstand a single blow. His strength was too terrifying, wasn't it? How many years had it been? And he had become so strong. How did he do it? In the blink of an eye, another 6 commanders had lost their lives. Until now, only the Yun State Mansion Master and Imo Jun were still alive. The entire city was dead silent. The Yun State Mansion Master and Imo Jun were also drowned in deep fear. Revenge breeds revenge. When will it ever end? Let go, child. At this moment, a sigh was heard. An old man with mottled white hair flew over from afar and landed in front of Fatty. He looked even older than the Yun State Mansion Master, but his aura was stronger than the Yun State Mansion Master. 9-star Battle Master. You are. Fatso frowned. Chapter 896. So it's you. Fatso suddenly realized and said, Are you planning to help them? The old man said, I won't help anyone. I'm just here to resolve this hatred. The seed of hatred has already sprouted. It's not something you can resolve just because you say so. Fat Lord also wants to ask you, what were you doing when they massacred my Situ family? Since you're so kind, shouldn't you come out and stop them? Fatso said. This old man did stop them, but when this old man received the news and rushed over, it was already too late. The old man sighed. Ridiculous. Fatso was so angry that he laughed and landed in front of Emojun. Emojun's body and mind tightened. Just as he was about to escape, Fatso's arm shot out and grabbed his neck. Lord, save me. Emojun hurriedly called for help. No one can save you now. Fatso sneered and looked at the old man. Back then, you didn't help my Situ family. Now, I advise you, it's best not to interfere. After saying that, his 5 fingers began to close, and Emojun gradually entered a suffocating state. Lord, I don't want to die yet. Save me. Emojun looked at the Yun State Mansion Master and screamed. However, the Yun State Mansion Master did not have any reaction. If there was a way, she would have done it long ago and would not have waited until now. Oh right, I still have a trump card in my hand. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly looked at Fatso and shouted, Let him go immediately, or I'll kill Situ Hai. Uncle Hai? Fatso was shocked. He stared at the Yun State Mansion Master and said angrily, What did you do to Uncle Hai? Back then, when you went to the capital, I guessed that this day would come. So I asked Emojun to investigate Situ Hai's hiding place. Heaven will not let down those who work hard. Last year, we finally found his whereabouts and found the cemetery where your clansmen were buried. At that time, we caught him. As for his safety, it's fine now, but if you dare to continue to be presumptuous, then it's hard to say. The Yun Prefecture Master sneered coldly. Fatso's eyes darkened as he let go of Emojun. Emojun immediately ran towards Yun State's Manor Lord, his entire body drenched in cold sweat. Fatso said, Hand over Uncle Hai, and Fat Lord will leave your corpses intact. No, you have to promise me that you will never hurt us again and never step into the cloud state again. Then, I will return Situ Hai to you. The governor of Yun State said. Fatso's eyes flickered as he struggled. In the end, he nodded and said, All right, I promise you. Let him go immediately. It's impossible to release him now, because I can't believe your words. You guys leave first. Later, I will open the portal and send Situ Hai to the capital of the spiritual state. You guys can go there and find him. The governor of Yun State said. She was also stalling for time. As long as she could trick Qin Feiyong and the others into going to the spiritual state, she would have time to report this to the imperial capital. Haha, old witch, do you think Fat Lord is an idiot? Are you that gullible? Fatso laughed. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyong and nodded to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong smiled. With a thought, the double-winged snow eagle appeared. Qin Feiyong said, Imprison everyone in the capital. Understood. The double-winged snow eagle chuckled. The terrifying Saint Aura was like a raging wave, instantly enveloping the entire capital. Everyone was imprisoned at this moment. This is, the pupils of the former governor of Yun State contracted. It was actually a saint beast. They even had a saint beast by their side. What had these people experienced all these years? At the same time, the governor of Yun State and Emojun's faces were also full of disbelief. The fear in their hearts was even greater than before. Do you think you can threaten us by taking Uncle Hai away? With a contemptuous smile, Fatso walked step by step to the governor of Yun State. What do you want to do? The governor of Yun State was completely scared. He wanted to run, but he was imprisoned by the majesty and couldn't run. Fatso said, I'll give you one last chance. Tell me where Uncle Hai is. The governor of Yun State, was so scared that he couldn't even speak. You're not going to say it? Then go to hell. A cold light flashed in Fatso's eyes. He suddenly raised his dragon claw and directly punched the head of the governor of Yun State. Blood splattered all over Imo Jun, who was beside him. Immediately, Imo Jun's entire body was cold, his face was pale, and his soul was scared away. Shwa. Fatso turned to look at Imo Jun and chuckled. Are you going to say it or not? That smile in Imo Jun's eyes was like the god of death waving at him. I'll say it. I'll say it. Facing Fatso's bloody methods, his inner defense finally collapsed. Where is he? Fatso asked. He's in the governor's backyard. We didn't hurt a single hair on him. Instead, we treated him like a guest and treated him well. Can you do me a favor and let me go? I swear, I will be honest in the future and never go against you again. Imo Jun begged. Don't make it sound so dignified. If it wasn't because Uncle Hai can threaten me, would you treat him well? However, Fat Lord is a man of his word. He will leave you with an intact corpse. Fatso sneered. He raised his hand, and a black dragon battle chi appeared. Like a sharp blade, it slashed across Imo Jun's neck. Ah! Imo Jun immediately screamed. Blood spurted out from the wound on his neck. Soon, he breathed his last and died. And Fatso's face didn't have the slightest hint of joy. Instead, there was a trace of disappointment that couldn't be removed. He stood in the air for a long time without saying a word. Qin Feiyang walked forward and asked, The murderer and accomplice are both dead. Why are you still so depressed? Yeah, they're all dead. I should be happy, but I just can't feel happy. Fatso raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang, his eyes full of confusion. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, It's emptiness, right? And it's like you've lost your goal and have no motivation. Fatso nodded. I can understand. All these years, the only thing that can keep you moving forward is the hatred in your heart. And now that you've taken your revenge, you feel like you're missing something in your heart? Qin Feiyang said. Yes, it's the feeling. Fatso said. Qin Feiyang immediately slapped Fatso's head and said angrily, Are we still brothers? You've taken your revenge, but what about me? Fatso was slightly stunned. That's right. His revenge had been taken, but his boss's revenge hadn't been taken yet. His boss's matter was equivalent to his matter. That's right. He had to pull himself together and continue to fight. However, his head still hurt a little. What does your revenge have to do with Fat Lord? Don't mess with me. He glared at Qin Feiyang and snorted. Then, he turned and flew toward the central city with a smile on his face. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He glanced at the previous mansion master and said lightly, You don't have to report this to the imperial capital, because we'll be there soon. With that, Qin Feiyang nodded to the double-winged snow eagle. The double-winged snow eagle understood and immediately withdrew its holy aura. I'm old and can't care so much. It's the world of you young people now. The old man glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other two, then turned and left with a sigh. Mu Qing, who hadn't spoken since the beginning, frowned and said, Now that you're done, can we go to the imperial capital? Qin Feiyang pondered and said, I have to go to the spiritual state again. Wait for me here. The spiritual state? Are you crazy? There must be people from the imperial capital in the spiritual state now. Mu Qing said angrily. I know, but I have to go and find out the situation. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he opened a teleportation gate and walked in with large strides. This bastard really does things his own way. Mu Qing was quite angry. Don't worry, we have to wait until tomorrow to open the portal and return to the Forgotten Continent. The black-robed old man said telepathically. The portal behind him had already been retracted into his body when Fatso went on a killing spree. Mu Qing raised her eyebrows and turned to look at the black-robed old man. She asked in a low voice, Ancestor, are you okay? I'm fine, just overused my divine power. I just need to rest for a while. The black-robed old man said. Mu Qing said worriedly, Can you take it when we open the portal tomorrow? The black-robed old man thought for a moment and said, By tomorrow, my divine power should have recovered a lot. It shouldn't be too big of a problem. That won't do. Let's stay a few more days. We'll go back when your divine power has completely recovered. Mu Qing said. Okay, you arrange it. The black-robed old man smiled. From this conversation, it could be seen that this person trusted and doted on Mu Qing a lot. Spiritual State Capital, East City Treasure Pavilion. In a lounge, a dignified woman in white was sitting at a desk with her head lowered and writing something. Swoosh. Suddenly, a young man in white descended into the lounge. The woman in white frowned and looked up at the young man. At that moment, she froze there. Her expression was full of disbelief. Aunt Shui, it hasn't been long since we last met. Don't tell me you can't recognize me? Qin Feiyang grinned. That's right. This woman in white was Luo Qingzhu's mother, Luo Qinshui. Is it really you? Luo Qinshui's body trembled. She put down the pen in her hand, looked at Qin Feiyang, and slowly stood up. It's the real deal, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Luo Qinshui immediately walked in front of Qin Feiyang. Looking at the familiar but weather-beaten face in front of her, tears couldn't help but fall from her eyes. That was the love and care of a mother for her son. But suddenly, Luo Qinshui seemed to have thought of something and bowed. Greetings, Your Highness. Aunt Shui, what are you doing? I already said that in front of you, I am your son. Qin Feiyang quickly bent down and helped Luo Qinshui up. Okay. No matter what, as long as you come back safely. Luo Qinshui was very happy and excited. She took Qin Feiyang's hand and walked to the side of the coffee table to sit down. Feiyang, Luo Qinshui was about to ask something when Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, Aunt Shui, I can't stay too long this time. I can only tell you about my experience in the past few years slowly in the future. Luo Qinshui was stunned, nodded and asked, Okay, then why did you come back this time? Chapter 897. It's true. Luo Qinshui nodded. Damn it. Qin Feiyang clenched his fists, and his eyes flashed with a shocking light. Originally, the people in the capital wanted to take me, and Yin Nanshan away. In the end, they let us go under the pleas of Wang Hong and the old master. Luo Qinshui sighed. Qin Feiyang asked, Is the current governor of the spiritual state still Wang Hong? It's him. But he's just a figurehead. Now, there's a large group of invincible black army guarding the city. They won't leave until they catch you. Luo Qinshui said. Qin Feiyang blamed himself. It's all my fault. Don't say that. Whether it's me or the old master, we all treat you as our own child. As long as you're fine, we'll be at ease. Luo Qinshui patted the back of Qin Feiyang's hand and comforted him. But Aunt Shui, I can't be at ease. Qin Feiyang lowered his head, his face full of pain. If Luo Qinshui scolded him or beat him up, he would feel better. But the more she did, the more guilty he felt. Okay, don't blame yourself. Life is short. What you need to do now is to stay alive. Only when you're alive will there be hope. Luo Qinshui touched Qin Feiyang's head dotingly and said, Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded, suppressed his emotions, and asked, Where's Yin Yuanming? Why don't I see him? He's at the auction house. If you want to see him, I'll call him over now. Luo Qinshui said. No need. The fewer people who know about my return, the better. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. After a moment of silence, he asked, How's Yi? That girl is working very hard. Since you left, she has been in seclusion. Now, it's said that she has suddenly become a 9-star combat emperor. Oh right, there's another little girl. She's on very good terms with Yi now. Yin Nanshan likes her a lot too. I asked Yin Nanshan last time. He said that the girl was your little girlfriend. Is that true? Luo Qinshui looked at Qin Feiyang curiously. Little girlfriend? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why didn't he know that he had a little girlfriend? Suddenly, a peerless beauty appeared in his mind, and he hurriedly asked, What's her name? What does he look like? She's called Yuer. She has long golden hair and always wears a light golden dress. Anyway, she's very pretty. Luo Qinshui said. That's her. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. Is she really your little girlfriend? Luo Qianxue was surprised. I guess so. Qin Feiyong sighed deeply and asked, is she also in the temple? Yes. Furthermore, her cultivation speed is not the slightest bit inferior to Yi's. Right now, she and Yi are known as the twin prides of the inner palace. Luo Qianxue said. What's the point of this? Qin Feiyong sighed inwardly. The person that Luo Qianxue was talking about was definitely the mermaid princess. In order to follow in his footsteps, she actually left the Sea of Despair. Didn't she know how dangerous it was for people on land? If her identity was exposed, not only would she suffer, but the entire mermaid clan would also be implicated. Was it worth it to take such a huge risk for him? What a silly woman. I can't tell. He's usually an honest child, but he's actually hiding a little beauty in the dark. How is it? When are you going to bring her to see me personally? Luo Qianxue didn't know about this and teased. She's in the city now. You can see her anytime you want. Do you still need me to bring her here? Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. How can it be the same? Luo Qianxue said with a straight face. Yes, yes, yes. When I have time, I'll definitely bring her to see you personally. Qin Feiyong was rather helpless. Luo Qianxue shook her head and laughed. She said with a serious face, let's stop joking. What do you plan to do next? Qin Feiyong said, I'll go to the imperial capital later and see if I can save my mother. As for the future, let's talk about it later. Going to the imperial capital with your current strength, isn't it like sending a lamb to a tiger's den? Luo Qianxue was shocked. I know, but I can't control myself. If I don't go, I'm afraid I can't cultivate in peace. Qin Feiyong said. Luo Qianxue fell silent. After a long while, she smiled and said, if you want to go, then go. But remember, you must survive. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. He took a deep look at Luo Qianxue and stood up resolutely. He opened the portal and left. Yunzhou. In the sky above the city, Fatso had already returned. Beside him was a skinny old man in black. It was Situ Hai. Greetings, Your Highness. Seeing Qin Feiyong appear, Situ Hai immediately bowed. Back then, when he learned that Qin Feiyong was the son of the emperor, he was also greatly shocked. It was only then that he understood why Fatso would follow this person so loyally. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, I'm no longer Your Highness. Elder, you don't have to be so polite. No, no, no. Even if you're no longer Your Highness now, I should thank you for taking care of Tianyu all these years, Situ Hai said. Qin Feiyong smiled and didn't say anything else. Can we go now? Mu Qing looked at them and said impatiently, Let's go. Qin Feiyong said. Wait. Situ Hai quickly reached out his hand and turned to Fatso. He said, Tianyu, come with me. I want to talk to you privately. Okay. Fatso nodded and followed Situ Hai to the side. Situ Hai turned around and glanced at Qin Feiyong. He said through voice transmission, Tianyu, I know there are some things that I can't say, but I really can't hold it in. What? Fatso was puzzled. Although everything you have today is because of Qin Feiyong, you've been at his beck and call all these years. It can be said that you've repaid him a lot. Situ Hai thought to himself. Fatso raised an eyebrow and said, What are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that now that he's going against the emperor, he won't have a good ending. It's best that you leave him. Situ Hai said, Uncle Hai, you're asking me to be an ungrateful person. Fatso said angrily, This isn't being ungrateful. It's being sensible. You're the only heir left in the Situ family. Nothing can happen to you. Moreover, who's the emperor? He's the ruler of the great Qin Empire. You can't fight against him at all. So, Tianyu, listen to my advice and leave him. I believe Qin Feiyong can understand you. Situ Hai tried his best to persuade him. Shut up. Fatso was angry. Fatso, may not be a powerful person, but I still know the word loyalty. We'll share blessings and misfortunes. No matter what the future is, I'll always be with you. Uncle Hai, I don't want to hear these words a second time. You should leave Yun State as soon as possible. The death of the Yun State Mansion Lord will be known by the people in the imperial capital sooner or later. When they investigate, you'll be the first to be taken away. After Fatso finished speaking, he turned around and walked toward Qin Feiyang. There was a trace of disappointment in his eyes. He was disappointed in Situ Hai. Sigh. What a silly boy. Situ Hai let out a long sigh and didn't send Fatso and Qin Feiyang off. He turned around and flew out of the city, looking extremely lonely. Qin Feiyang glanced at Situ Hai's back, then looked at Fatso and said, "He's actually concerned about you, you know?" Fatso frowned. "It's not hard to guess." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Of course, I know he's doing it for my own good, but I can't agree with his behavior. Humans should go out and do something big. What's the point of being a coward?" Fatso said disdainfully. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Although Fatso was a bit unreliable, no one could deny that he was indeed a loyal person. Clang. At this moment, with a loud sound, a space-time door appeared in front of Mu Qing. Of course, it was just a replica. However, even if it was a replica, it could be directly teleported to the imperial capital. Where should we stay? Mu Qing looked at Qin Feiyang and asked through voice transmission. Qin Feiyang said, "We definitely can't stay in the imperial capital. Let's go to the Black Dragon Swamp. We escaped from there." "Okay, let's go to the Black Dragon Swamp." Hearing this name, Mu Qing's eyes were filled with strong murderous intent, because Mu Xuer was killed by Zhuge Mingyang in the Black Dragon Swamp. Although the replica space-time door was not a divine artifact, it was still a divine artifact. With the ability of Qin Feiyang and the others, they couldn't revive it. Therefore, Yiglao had to revive it. And with Yiglao's cultivation, it was too easy to revive a divine artifact. Clang. Oldie raised his arm and used only a strand of divine power, which was as thin as a strand of hair, to instantly revive the door of time and space. The four of them stepped in one after another. Black Dragon Swamp. After a few years, this place had already changed beyond recognition. However, Mu Qing seemed to be able to sense the aura left behind by Mu Xuer before she died. Standing high in the sky, looking down at the ground, grief came from his heart. "Why don't we just get rid of Zhuge Mingyang this time?" Fatso said. Mu Qing wasn't the only one who hated Zhuge Mingyang. Qin Feiyang and Fatso also wanted to kill him. Phew. A moment later, Mu Qing took a deep breath and said, "Zhuge Mingyang must die, but that's only secondary. Let me contact Lu Xingqian first." As he spoke, he took out the image crystal and poured his battle chi into it. The image crystal immediately emitted a hazy light. Qin Feiyang and Fatso looked at each other and looked at the image crystal in Mu Qing's hand. However, after waiting for a long time, Lu Xingqian actually didn't respond. Fatso said in surprise, "Could it be that he was really caught?" "It's possible," Qin Feiyang secretly said. "But that's not right. The Imperial Tutor was just taken away by the Snow Python yesterday. Logically speaking, he should still be in Forgotten Continent." Fatso said in bewilderment. "What logic? Doesn't the Snow Python know how to use the teleportation gate? Moreover, it can even easily suppress a false god, let alone the distance between the Central Divine Kingdom and the Glacier Forest. I reckon that the Imperial Tutor had already been driven out by it yesterday." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. If the Imperial Tutor really came back, then according to his personality, there was a high chance that he would make a move on Lu Xingqian and the others. Although Lu Xingqian had a spatial divine object that could move, if the Imperial Tutor personally appeared and caught him off guard, then it would be almost impossible for Lu Xingqian to escape, because the Imperial Tutor could use his divine sense to capture the location of the spatial divine object. Chapter 898. While Qin Feiyang and Fatso were secretly talking, Mu Qing and Yiglao were also secretly communicating. Mu Qing said in a deep voice, "It seems that as Qin Feiyang said, Lu Xingqian has met with an accident. He can't have an accident. But now, I have to find a place to recover my divine power, so I'll leave it to you to gather information," Yiglao said. "Okay," Mu Qing responded, put away the image crystal, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Let's go into the city to find out the situation first. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded, and then sent Fatso to the castle. Seeing this, Mu Qing's eyes flashed and said, "Why don't we let Yiglao go to the castle to recover his divine power? In this way, if anything happens to us in the city, he can help us in time." "That's not necessary. As long as we are careful, there shouldn't be any big problems," Qin Feiyang said. What kind of joke was this? Letting a fake god go to the castle, wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted? Mu Qing frowned and said helplessly, "We are now grasshoppers on the same rope. Is there a need to be so careful?" Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, "It's hard to know what's in a person's heart. It's better to be careful." Mu Qing was seething with anger. Don't force me. I can find a place anywhere." Yiglao said with a smile. "Okay." Mu Qing took a deep look at Qin Feiyang, took out a phantom elixir, and changed into a sallow and emaciated young man. Qin Feiyang also took the phantom elixir and turned into a thin and sickly young man. "Where are we going?" Mu Qing looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. "Fragrant Moon Tower." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he opened the portal. The two of them walked in one after another. The Fragrant Moon Inn was located in the first district. Qin Feiyang was not unfamiliar with this place at all because Qin Yu and Qin she had stayed in the Fragrant Moon brothel before. Even after so many years, the Fragrant Moon brothel was still bustling with activity. On the street in front of the door, there was an endless stream of people and carriages. One by one, young men and women in luxurious clothing walked in and out. Many of them had a small sword symbol embroidered on their clothes. These were the disciples of the Temple of Gods. Swish! Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing appeared in the crowd. There were all kinds of people on the street, so even if there were two more people, no one would care. The two of them scanned their surroundings and entered the Fragrant Moon brothel. "Are the two of you having a meal?" A waiter came up to greet them. He looked at Qin Feiyang and Li Wuyo with a lukewarm attitude. Their current appearances were too ordinary. It was hard to believe that they could spend money in a high-end restaurant like the Fragrant Moon brothel. "Let's eat." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Come with me." The waiter glanced at the two of them and then led them to a corner of the lobby. Although the two of them looked poor, one couldn't judge a book by its cover after all. Besides, although the Fragrant Moon brothel was not a super force, it had a certain reputation in the capital. No one dared to dine and dash here. At the same time, Qin Feiyang was also scanning the people in the lobby. Although it was still morning, there were many people drinking and chatting here. However, the topics they discussed were basically trivial matters that didn't have much value. As they walked, Qin Feiyang suddenly noticed that there were two young men sitting opposite each other at a table. Both of them had outstanding appearances and extraordinary temperaments. One of them was quite tall, about 1.9 meters. The other was slightly shorter, about 1.75 meters. There was a small sword symbol on their chests. It was obvious that they were both disciples of the Divine Hall. Beside the two of them, there was a table that was empty. No one was sitting at it. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He pointed at the table and smiled. "Let's sit there." Mu Qing glanced at the table and then looked at the two disciples of the Divine Hall next to it. He immediately understood Qin Feiyang's intention. He shrugged and said indifferently, "Anything is fine." The waiter led the two of them over. "What would you like to order?" After Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing took their seats, the waiter asked with a smile. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, 2 pots of wine first and a few dishes to go with the wine. That's all." "Okay, wait a moment," the waiter shouted, then turned around and ran away in a hurry. Mu Qing glanced at the two disciples of the Divine Hall and then looked at Qin Feiyang. He smiled and said, "I haven't been to the capital for many years. I wonder if there have been any changes?" As he spoke, he winked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang understood and whispered, "I heard that all the princes were killed. I don't know if it's true or not." Although he deliberately lowered his voice, the two disciples of the Divine Hall next to them still heard it clearly. The two of them couldn't help but turn to look at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing, frowning slightly. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing pretended not to see it and continued their discussion. After a while, the waiter brought 2 pots of wine and 4 dishes. He put them on the table and then turned to leave. The two disciples of the Divine Hall were still paying attention to Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing looked at each other with an imperceptible smile in their eyes. Then, the two of them drank and discussed as if nothing had happened. "You two, just have a few words. Don't keep talking." The short young man finally couldn't help but turned to Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing and whispered, "Hmm?" Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing looked at the man suspiciously. The short young man said, "I'm doing it for your own good. If you continue to talk, you may die." Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing looked at each other, their eyes full of surprise and doubt. Mu Qing whispered, "Brother, what do you mean?" The tall young man rolled his eyes and said, "It means that the topic you are talking about is already a taboo in the capital." "Taboo? So the princes were really killed?" Qin Feiyang said in surprise. "Sure." The two disciples of the Divine Hall suddenly changed their faces and hurriedly made a gesture to Qin Feiyang to keep quiet. Qin Feiyang also immediately covered his mouth, pretending to be frightened and glancing around. "Let me tell you," the short young man wanted to say something, but he stopped and waved his hand. "Forget it. I won't say anything. If you want to die, continue your discussion." "Brother, what's going on? Don't keep us in suspense." Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice with a curious expression. "How about this? A few days ago, we happened to get a spiritual sea pill. If you two are willing to tell us, we'll give it to you for free." Mu Qing offered a tempting offer. A spiritual sea pill. The two disciples' eyes lit up. Although they were disciples of the Divine Hall, the spiritual sea pill could repair their sea of qi. It was extremely precious for them. The two disciples looked at each other and pondered for a moment. The tall young man asked, "Do you really have a spiritual sea pill?" Mu Qing took out a spiritual sea pill from his chinkuan bag, shook it, and quickly put it away. The spiritual sea pill only had one stripe. Even so, the two disciples were still tempted. The short young man looked around and whispered, "We can't talk about this here. After all, there are too many people here." "Understood, understood." Mu Qing nodded repeatedly. Then, he and Qin Feiyang looked at each other. A glint flashed in their eyes. Then, they looked up at the busy waiter and waved at him. "Come here." The waiter trotted over and asked with a smile, "Sir, what can I do for you?" "Arrange a private room for me. In addition, the previous expenses of the two guests here will also be charged to me." Mu Qing pointed at the two disciples of the Divine Hall and smiled. They had heard of it. The two disciples were overjoyed. The two of them were disciples of the Sacred Hall, so this sort of expenditure was nothing to them. However, they were very satisfied with Mu Qing's attitude. "A private room?" But the waiter was stunned. "Are you afraid that we don't have the money to pay?" Mu Qing raised his eyebrows. He took out the spiritual sea pill and shook it in front of the waiter. "No, no." The waiter shuddered and quickly shook his head. A flattering smile appeared on his face. What a joke. How could he be poor if he even had a spiritual sea pill? This was also true to the saying, "You can't judge a book by its cover." Fortunately, they did not offend them before. Otherwise, they would be in trouble. "Then why don't you hurry up? We still have to entertain our distinguished guests," Mu Qing said with a sullen face. Hearing the words "distinguished guests," the two disciples of the Divine Hall also stood up. The smiles on their faces were even brighter. The waiter also looked at the two people with a surprised look. They actually knew disciples of the Divine Hall? All the more reason to treat them with respect. "For young masters, please follow me." The waiter smiled flatteringly and quickly led the four people upstairs. Soon, they entered a private room on the 4th floor. Qin Feiyang said a few words to the waiter and then let him leave. Mu Qing immediately took out the spiritual sea pill and handed it to the two people with both hands. The short young man took it with a smile. He shook his head and said with a smile, "I didn't know that the two of you were rich." "Rich?" Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing looked at each other. However, with their wealth, they were indeed worthy of the title of local tycoons. "Please sit down." Qin Feiyang stretched out his hand and said with a smile. The four people sat in a circle. After a while, the waiter brought 4 jars of the fragrant Moon restaurant's best wine and more than a dozen delicious dishes. How generous! The two disciples of the divine hall looked at the dishes on the table and laughed happily. The dishes on the table were estimated to cost at least hundreds of thousands of gold coins. Come, come, come. Don't be polite. Let me propose a toast to the two of you. Next, Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing did not ask anything. They just drank with the two of them. After the 4 jars of wine were finished, they ordered another 4. In the end, the two disciples of the divine hall were a little drunk. It was also at this moment that Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing looked at each other. A cunning smile flashed across their eyes. Qin Feiyang asked calmly, "Brothers, are the princes really dead?" "Dead. The eldest prince, the second prince, and the 15th prince are all dead. They were killed by a man named Qin Feiyang. Feng Yun and Lin Dian, the 2 sons of Marquis, also died in his hands. He is really a killer. By the way, do you know who Qin Feiyang is? He is the 14th prince who was destroyed and expelled from the imperial capital. A few years ago, he came back to take revenge. It is said that he even fought with the emperor. He is extremely cruel. Now, only a group of princesses are left in the imperial palace. But I heard that His Majesty and Empress gave birth to a Ryuko last year." Chapter 899. Another Ryuko? Qin Feiyang furrowed his brows. Mu Qing was also a little surprised. She smiled secretly and said, "Congratulations, you have another brother, and he is your biological brother from the same father and mother." Qin Feiyang's face darkened. "My mother's position as the empress has already been abolished. Don't you know?" Mu Qing was slightly taken aback. She smiled bitterly and said, "Don't mention it. I really forgot. The current empress seems to be the first prince's mother?" "Yes," Qin Feiyang secretly responded. Mu Qing's eyes flashed. She smiled and said, "Then I'm afraid no one can take away her position as the empress, because there was a saying in the royal family. A mother's status depended on her son, and now all the children of the emperor were princesses. It was impossible for a princess to inherit the throne. So, the Ryuko born by the emperor and empress would definitely be the future crown prince. If there were no accidents, he would definitely become the future emperor of the great Qin Empire." Qin Feiyang glanced at Mu Qing. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "It's still too early to talk about this. Then I'll wait and see." Mu Qing smiled secretly. Then she looked at the two disciples of the divine hall and asked, "What's the name of this Ryuko?" The short young man said, "I think he's called Qin Haoyan, the same name as the 14th prince. It seems that the emperor is going to let this Ryuko completely replace Qin Feiyang. Because Qin Feiyang's real name is Qin Haoyan. To be honest, this Qin Feiyang is quite pitiful. As the former top genius of the imperial capital, even Zhuge Mingyang's halo was overshadowed by him. Moreover, he was the most promising prince to inherit the throne. It's really a pity that he has fallen to this point." The tall young man also sighed. "Replace me." Qin Feiyang clenched his fists, and there was a sharp light in his eyes. Although he no longer used the name Qin Haoyan, he abhorred the emperor's actions. The short youth said, "I also heard that the emperor created another bright sky palace for this Ryuko." "What?" The anger in Qin Feiyang's heart almost exploded. Putting aside the fact that they had given him the same name, they had even created a new dawn celestial palace. This wasn't just a replacement, it was a complete humiliation to him. Mu Qing did not comfort Qin Feiyang. Instead, she pursed her lips playfully. It was easy to imagine that Qin Feiyang had the urge to kill someone, but he had no choice but to hold it in. He liked to see Qin Feiyang fall into this kind of situation, but he was disappointed. Qin Feiyang quickly calmed down. He looked at the two people and asked, "Then, is there any change in the structure of the divine hall?" "What change can there be in the divine hall? The elixir hall and the martial arts hall are still controlled by the sons of the martial marquises. However, a few people have risen rapidly in the past few years. They are even threatening the people on the elixir god list and the martial god list." The two said. "Who?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. Lu Xingqian, Ren Wushuang, Shun Mei, Dong Jingyang, Tan Wu, Wan Xiu, Ling Yu, Luo Dan, Zhao Yu, Feng Ranran, Fengwuxie, Xuaning, Xuerua. This group of people entered the imperial capital with Qin Feiyang. They are also from the 9 prefectures. We originally thought that only Qin Feiyang was terrifying, but we didn't expect that these people were also monstrous. The two frowned and couldn't figure it out. This Wanxiu is still alive? Qin Feiyang was surprised. This guy's life was really tough. However, he still believed that Ren Wushuang and Shan Mei could threaten the people on the Elixir God list and the Martial God list after all these years of growth. After all, the two of them had opened the door of potential. Lu Xingqian, on the other hand, was mysterious and unfathomable. However, although people like Tan Wu and Wan Qiu were talented, it was impossible for them to grow to this level in the past few years. Why was that? Just as Qin Feiyang was thinking, Mu Qing looked at the two people and asked, "Is Lu Xingqian still in the Divine Hall?" "No." The short young man shook his head. Mu Qing's pupil shrank and asked, "Then where is he now?" "We don't know either." Late last night, the state preceptor suddenly came to the Divine Hall with the law enforcers and took away Lu Xingqian, Shun Mei, Ren Wushuang, and Dong Xingyang. The short young man said. Mu Qing suddenly turned his head to look at Qin Feiyang and said, "Bastard, you lied to me." "Did I lie to you?" Qin Feiyang looked at him innocently. "You told me that Lu Xingqian had been locked up in the divine prison for a long time, but now they said that he was taken away last night and they didn't lie to me?" Mu Qing said angrily. Qin Feiyang said, "Then I'm not wrong. He must be locked up in the divine prison now." Humph. Mu Qing snorted and asked, "Then what do you think we should do next?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, "We can only think of a way to sneak into the back mountain of the imperial palace and see if we can enter the divine prison. Not to mention the back mountain. Even if it's the gate of the imperial palace, with our current ability, we can't sneak in." Mu Qing said in a deep voice, "Brothers, this is actually not a secret. Everyone in the imperial capital knows about it, but they don't dare to talk about it. But why do you look like you don't know anything about it?" The two disciples of the divine palace looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, "We have been cultivating in the mountains all these years and have not inquired about the situation outside." "I see." The two of them nodded in realization. Next, Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing drank with the two of them again and also got a lot of other news. At night, the bustling city gradually quieted down. At midnight, in the sky, the waning moon hung high. Sometimes a dark cloud floated by, blocking the waning moon, making the land look extremely dim. Inner city. In a certain alley, two black shadows shuttled back and forth silently in the night. Inner city. There was no bustling downtown, because the divine palace and the mansions of the marquis were all entrenched in the inner city. Therefore, the night in the inner city was even quieter than the 10 districts outside. And those two black shadows were Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. The two of them passed through the alley and entered a wide street. On both sides of the street were rows of lush trees. The two of them hid in the shadows of the trees and advanced quickly. A moment later, Qin Feiyang suddenly stopped and stood behind the tree, looking at the opposite street. On the opposite side, there was a door, golden and dazzling, rather imposing. Behind the door was a huge mansion. At the door, two large lanterns were hanging, emitting a bright candlelight. Through the candlelight, one could clearly see that there was a plaque made of gold hanging above the door. On it, there were 3 bold and powerful words engraved. Qianwu Marquis. On both sides of the door, 4 guards stood upright, emitting a strong aura. "What's wrong?" Mu Qing stopped and looked at the mansion opposite, then looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang. "Nothing. I just remembered some things from the past." Qin Feiyang shook his head and continued to rush forward. He was no stranger to Marquis Qianwu. That year, Marquis Qianwu set up a banquet and invited him to his mansion. In the end, the two of them fell out. It was Lu Xingqian who saved him, and with the help of Lu Xingqian, they even killed Marquis Qianwu's son, Feng Yun. In order to take revenge on Marquis Qianwu, he even specially sent Feng Yun's corpse to Marquis Qianwu. At that time, Marquis Qianwu was extremely angry. It was estimated that Marquis Qianwu hated him to the bone. However, he did not put a mere martial marquis in his heart. Although the various martial marquis had a high status in the Great Qin Empire, their overall strength was not very strong. There were even some martial marquis manor that were not as strong as those super families. And the reason why they were able to occupy the inner city and have such a high status was completely because of their ancestors. Their ancestors were all people who accompanied the first-generation emperor to conquer the world. About an hour later, Qin Feiyang and Marquis Qianwu passed through the inner city and stopped behind a big tree and looked ahead. In front of them was a wide street, and opposite the street was a plaza. The plaza was very big and brightly lit, but there was no one in sight. And at the end of the plaza, there was a tall city wall. The city wall was completely black and tens of meters tall. It emitted a cold aura like a black python that extended to the ends of the earth. And in the middle of the plaza, there was a city gate with two grand words above it. Imperial Palace. That's right. This was the gate of the Imperial Palace. But at this moment, the city gate was tightly shut, and there were 10 black armored guards standing on both sides. It was the invincible Black Army. Judging from the aura they emitted, they were all battle saints. Moreover, on the city wall, there was an invincible Black Army soldier every 5 meters. And in the middle of the city gate, one could clearly see a tall and sturdy man sitting cross-legged. He was also wearing black armor, but the aura he emitted was more than 2 times stronger than the other soldiers of the invincible Black Army. Do you see that? With such tight security, even a fly can't fly in, let alone 2 people like us. Mu Qing glanced at the gate of the Imperial Palace and said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang remained silent and looked at the tall and sturdy man. Did you hear what I said? Mu Qing frowned and looked in the direction of Qin Feiyang's gaze. His body trembled slightly, and he said to himself, "Who is he?" "The deputy commander of the invincible Black Army," Qin Feiyang said. Mu Qing rubbed his forehead and said, "The deputy commander is personally guarding the gate of the Imperial Palace. The chances of sneaking in are even slimmer." "You're right. It's impossible to sneak in. We have to think of another way," Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. The guards at the gate of the Imperial Palace were not the scariest thing. The scariest thing was the back of the mountain, because the Kirin army was guarding the back of the mountain. The Kirin army was even stronger than the invincible Black Army. The Kirin army. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes shone with a thoughtful light. "I've got an idea." After a while, Qin Feiyang withdrew his gaze and turned to look at Mu Qing with a smile. "What idea?" Mu Qing looked at him expectantly. In the back of the Imperial Palace, other than the Emperor and the State Preceptor, the commander and deputy commander of the Kirin army can also enter freely, and they don't have to report to anyone. If we can persuade one of them, it will be easy to enter the back of the mountain. Chapter 900. Convince them? Mu Qing was speechless. It was not hard to imagine that the commander and deputy commander of the Kirin army were the confidants of the emperor. To convince them, it was better to just barge in. Qin Feiyang laughed. "I know it will be hard to convince them, but I am confident." "Are you sure?" Although Qin Feiyang looked confident, Mu Qing was still doubtful. "Follow me." Qin Feiyang turned and walked down the left side of the street. Mu Qing chased after him and asked suspiciously, "Where are we going?" The commander and deputy commander of the Kirin army, although they have been staying in the Imperial Palace, they still have family, Qin Feiyang said. "So that's how it is." Mu Qing nodded. After about 100 breaths, the two of them entered an alley and entered the opposite street. Then Qin Feiyang stopped in the middle of the street and looked around. One after another, huge mansions were situated on both sides of the street in picturesque disorder, but they were all Wu Ho government. Mu Qing stood silently at the side. Seeing Qin Feiyang not moving, she frowned. "Do you remember? I went there a few times when I was young. It should be around here." Qin Feiyang muttered. "When you were young." Mu Qing's forehead was filled with black lines. When Qin Feiyang was young, it was before he was 10 years old. After so many years, everything had changed. How could she find it? This bastard. He was indeed unreliable. "I remember. The commander's mansion of the Kirin army is beside a crossroad. On both sides of the mansion's door, there are two stone-carved tautai, Qin Feiyang said. Crossroad, Taodai. Mu Qing scanned the two sides of the street, pointed to the right and said, "There is a crossroad there. Let's go and take a look," Qin Feiyang said. The two of them silently sneaked over. Before they even got close, they saw two Taodai statues in front of the gate of a mansion. The two stone sculptures were vivid and lifelike. Their mouths were wide open and their eyes were glaring furiously, exuding a menacing aura. Right here, Qin Feiyang stopped under a big tree on the side of the street. Like a ghost, he looked at the mansion across the street. There were 4 guards standing guard in front of the door. They were all dressed in black, and their eyes were looking straight ahead. His aura wasn't very strong. He was a 5-star war ancestor. Above the door, there were 6 large golden words. The Kirin Army Commander's Office. Every stroke of the words was like an iron hook, emitting a shocking, murderous aura. Mu Qing swallowed and sent a voice transmission. "How's the commander's cultivation?" "I don't know. But one thing is for sure. It's definitely a battle emperor. So, remember to be careful," Qin Feiyang secretly warned. Mu Qing nodded. However, as if he suddenly thought of something, his expression changed slightly, and he said in surprise, "Are you going to break in like this? Do you think I'm stupid?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. Although the Qilin army's commander wasn't in the mansion, one didn't need to think to know that there was definitely a powerhouse keeping watch inside the mansion. Breaking in like this was simply courting death. "Then what are you going to do?" Mu Qing asked. "I remember that the Kirin army commander has a daughter who is about the same age as me. What's her name? I don't have a deep impression. I forgot. In short, if we can get her, the Kirin army commander will naturally take the initiative to come to us. I just don't know if she's in the mansion now," Qin Feiyang said. Mu Qing's eyes lit up, and he asked, "Do you still remember where she lives?" "I've only met her a few times. How would I know where she lives?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. Mu Qing said, "Then let's sneak in first, and then slowly look for her." Qin Feiyang glanced at the wall of the mansion, and then looked at the 4 guards at the door, and whispered, "Be careful. Don't let them find us." Mu Qing nodded. The two of them slowly retreated. They didn't stop until they were out of the sight of the 4 guards. Then, the two of them quietly rushed to the opposite side of the street and came to the bottom of the wall. Mu Qing directly prepared to climb over the wall without saying a word. "What's the hurry? Let's observe first." Qin Feiyang pulled him down, and then jumped up, holding the edge of the top of the wall with both hands, and craned his head to look inside. What came into sight was a garden with lush vegetation and hundreds of flowers in full bloom, filling the air with a strong floral fragrance. There were also several rockery and a clear stream. The stream flowed slowly, making splashing sounds. On the narrow path in the garden, there were black-clothed guards standing there. Judging from their auras, the lowest cultivation level was a 5-star war master. Mu Qing also jumped up and looked inside. His eyes swept across the guards, and his pupils contracted slightly as he sent a sound transmission. "This is too much." According to his calculations, there were no less than 20 guards in the garden in front of him. Basically, there was a sentry every 3 steps and a sentry every 7 steps. That's why I asked you to observe first. If you were to climb in like you did just now, you would definitely be discovered, Qin Feiyang thought. Then, his aura was restrained to the extreme, and his movements were abnormally careful. He climbed up the wall and gently landed on the grass below. Mu Qing also climbed in, and was also extremely careful. Even his breathing and heartbeat were controlled to the minimum. Then, the two of them hid behind a small tree and looked at the guards. Mu Qing thought, "We haven't been discovered, let's go." The two of them were about to take a step forward. But suddenly, from the small tree in front of them, 2 green lights shot out. Immediately, the two of them couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. They didn't even have time to see what the green light was before they hurriedly retreated. "Who is it?" It was also because their movements were too big that they alarmed the guards. They all turned their heads to look at the two of them. "Who are you? What's your purpose in sneaking into the commander's mansion?" More than 10 guards immediately cut through the air and surrounded Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. Damn it. Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing glanced at the guards, their faces extremely gloomy. They had just snuck into the mansion and were actually exposed. It was really a bad start. Hurry up and report your names. Seeing that Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing were silent, one of the guards shouted sternly. At this moment, the commotion here also alarmed the guards further away. They all rushed over with incomparably sharp gazes. Shua. It was also at this moment. The two green lights stopped in the air. They were actually two small green snakes. They were very small, about the size of chopsticks. The snakes flicked their tongues and were as green as jade. If they blended with the leaves and grass, it would be impossible to detect them. On the surface, these two small snakes didn't seem to be a threat at all. Spirit snake. But when Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing saw the true appearance of the small snakes, their expressions changed drastically. The phantom serpent was an extremely rare and terrifying beast. But what was terrifying was not their strength but their physical characteristics. Not only were they small, but they could also change the color of their skin according to the changes in the environment. In short, they were just like chameleons. However, this was only a secondary matter. The most terrifying thing about them was that they didn't have any smell at all. For example, other snakes would emit a fishy smell. Not to mention snakes, even other ferocious beasts, or even humans, would more or less have some sin on them. But Spirit Snake didn't have it at all. Moreover, not only did they have no smell, but they also didn't have any aura. It wasn't because they had restrained their aura, but because they were born without it, and it had nothing to do with their cultivation. Even if they cultivated to War Master, War Saint, or even War King, they would not reveal the slightest bit of their aura. Just like their name, they were like ghosts. It wasn't an exaggeration. If they didn't appear on their own, even if they were under your feet, you wouldn't notice them. Mu Qing's face was gloomy to the extreme. His eyes were filled with anger, and he thought to himself, "Why didn't you say earlier that there was a spirit snake here? When I came here when I was young, I never heard of a spirit snake." Qin Feiyong sent a sound transmission and also felt a headache coming on. The spirit snake's attack power wasn't high, but they were colorless and odorless, and were good at camouflage. Although their venom wasn't fatal, it could numb one's nerves. It could be said that they were natural guardians. This Kirin army commander was also smart, to actually let them guard the mansion. Then what should we do now? Mu Qing was burning with anxiety. It was no longer realistic to hide in the castle at this time, because once they disappeared into thin air, what would the guards think? "Don't worry, there will be a way," Qin Feiyong secretly said, trying to calm himself down. "Don't think that you can get away with it if you don't say anything. I'm telling you, if you don't make it clear today, you will all die. Don't even think about escaping. Our mansion has more than these two spirit snakes. Look at your feet." One of the guards sneered, and more guards surrounded them, and now there were more than 30 people. Feet? Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing were stunned, and they quickly looked down, and their faces suddenly turned pale. They saw that in the grass under their feet, spirit snakes kept coming out. They were only the length of chopsticks, densely packed. The two of them couldn't help but feel their scalps go numb. What's going on? At this moment, an old man in black came through the air and landed in front of a group of guards. "Butler, you came at the right time. We caught two little thieves." "Yes, they sneaked into the mansion sneakily. I don't know what they want to do," the group of guards said. Little thieves? Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned, and suddenly a plan came to his mind. Hearing this, the butler was also stunned. Looked at Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing and sneered, "You are bold. Do you know where this place is?" "No." Qin Feiyong shook his head. The butler and the group of guards were stunned. They didn't even know where the Kirin army commander's mansion was. Where did these two little thieves come from? Ahem. The butler coughed and said, "Listen carefully. This is the mansion of the Kirin army commander." "What?" Qin Feiyong's face changed greatly, and his body trembled, looking very scared and desperate. "What? Cramps?" Mu Qing looked at him suspiciously. "Screw you. If you want to live, do it with me." Qin Feiyong cursed secretly. What was this guy thinking? Couldn't he tell that he was pretending? Chapter 901. Looking at the appearance of Qin Feiyang and Li Yunhong, the butler frowned. They really didn't know? The housekeeper said in a deep voice. Then why did you sneak in? Qin Feiyang stammered. Tell me. The housekeeper shouted sternly. Qin Feiyang said, we came in to see if there is anything valuable. Hearing that, the housekeeper and a group of guards looked at each other. It should be known that the status of the commander of the Kirin army in the capital, even Marquis, had to be respectful to him. These two little thieves actually dared to come here to steal. Their guts were too fat. Your cultivation is not weak. You can casually find a place to make a lot of money. Why did you do this kind of sneaky business? The housekeeper asked. Obviously, he didn't believe Qin Feiyang's words. It's too troublesome to make money. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and said in fear. The housekeeper frowned and said, So you stole? Qin Feiyang nodded. Stealing is indeed a way to make money quickly, but do you know the consequences of being caught? The housekeeper looked at the two of them in disgust. He believed it. It was not that he was stupid. It was that Qin Feiyang and the others' pretense was too real. I know. Qin Feiyang nodded, looked up at the housekeeper, and begged, We didn't do anything outrageous. Can you let us go? Let you go? Humph. Let me tell you, the people I hate the most are lazy people like you who reap without sowing. The housekeeper's eyes turned cold. Whoosh. At the same time, on the grass, two phantom snakes suddenly jumped up and bit Qin Feiyang and the others' legs. At that moment, Qin Feiyang and the others felt a venom seeping into their bodies and then turning into terrible toxins, spreading to their limbs and bones. The first place to be paralyzed was their legs. Now, it was a little difficult for them to take a step. This is bad, Mu Qing mumbled. If he didn't get rid of the poison quickly, it wouldn't be long before his entire body would be paralyzed. At that time, not to mention these guards in front of him, even a one-star war sect would be able to easily deal with them. The steward glanced at the two of them, and a ferocious look flashed in his eyes. He said, Send them to the Snake Emperor. What? The expressions of the group of guards changed. His eyes were filled with fear. He seemed to be very afraid of the so-called Snake Emperor. Four bodyguards stepped forward and escorted Qin Feiyang and Qin Haodong out of the garden. They are the two little thieves? You look so weak, yet you actually dare to come to our governor's manor to steal? Why don't you just kill them? The guards they met along the way all looked curiously at Qin Feiyang and Bai Yunfei. When they found out that Qin Feiyang was going to be given to the Snake Emperor, all of them turned pale with fright. Looking at the expressions of these people, Qin Feiyang and Bai Yunfei became more and more bewildered. The four guards carried the two of them through layers of halls and arrived outside a dark forest. There were no guards here. The poison in Qin Feiyang and Bai Yunfei's body had already spread to their arms. Mu Qing glanced at the small forest and asked, For big brothers, what is the Snake Emperor? You'll know later. The four of them sneered and carried the two of them into the small forest. Ding dong. Walking and walking. A burst of melodious zither music floated into the ears of Qin Feiyang and Bai Yunfei. The sound of the zither came from behind the small forest. Who's playing the zither? The two of them were surprised. Mississippi, one of the guards said expressionlessly. And? Qin Feiyang and Bai Yunfei looked at each other. This was really a case of wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without any effort. Soon, they walked out of the small forest and a lake entered their line of sight. The lake was about a few hundred feet in front of the small forest. The light of the waning moon spread down, and the lake was rippling with layers of light. Except for the melodious zither music, there was no other sound here. It was dead silent, but the sound of the zither was still farther across the lake. The four guards didn't continue to move forward. They stopped in front of the lake and looked at it. By now, Qin Feiyang and Bai Yunfei had been paralyzed except for their heads. If they weren't held by the four guards, they might not be able to stand steadily. Mu Qing said anxiously, For big brothers, we really know we're wrong. Please have mercy on us, okay? The moment you stepped into the mansion, your fate was already decided. One of them said expressionlessly, Dong. Immediately, The four of them lifted Qin Fei Yang and Mu Qing and threw them directly into the lake, splashing water. Then, the four guards turned around and left quickly. They looked very anxious. They felt that there was a man-eating beast lurking in the lake. The lake water was very clear, but a little cold. Qin Fei Yang and Bai Yunfei's bodies were paralyzed and kept sinking. Bastard, why don't you think of a way? Mu Qing secretly transmitted her voice and glanced below vigilantly. Her face was full of anxiety. Without a doubt, the Snake Emperor must be in this lake. Splash! Before her voice died away. At the bottom of the lake below, a shocking undercurrent emerged. Qin Fei Yang and Bai Yunfei were shocked. They hurriedly looked down and were dumbfounded. Although there was an undercurrent below, they didn't see any trace of a beast. And they didn't sense the aura of a beast. What's going on? The two of them were surprised. The undercurrent was getting fiercer and fiercer. They also felt a strong sense of crisis that was rapidly approaching. No, there must be something in here. Mu Qing's face was gloomy. Could it be? Qin Fei Yang suddenly seemed to think of something, and his eyes trembled slightly. What is it? Mu Qing asked. They are all talking about the Snake Emperor. I think it should be a spirit Snake Emperor. Qin Fei Yang said. Yes, it must be. Mu Qing quivered and nodded repeatedly. The spirit snake could change the color of its skin at will. In the water, it could also change the color of its skin to the same color as the water. In this way, it mixed with the lake water, and it was difficult to see it with the naked eye. However, even if the two of them discovered this, they couldn't do anything to the spirit snake emperor. Because the spirit snake emperor didn't have any aura, they didn't know how strong it was or where it was. They could only pay attention to the undercurrent. Generally speaking, the water in the lake was still. There was only one situation where there would be an undercurrent. That was, something was swimming in the water. In other words, this undercurrent was generated when the spirit snake emperor was swimming. Therefore, as long as they paid attention to the undercurrent, they could distinguish the approximate location of the spirit snake emperor. However, even if they found the location of the spirit snake emperor, they were helpless now. Because their whole body was paralyzed, they couldn't fight back at all. Suddenly, that undercurrent was heading straight for them. The crisis was getting stronger and stronger. Without a doubt, the spirit snake emperor was swimming towards them. Mu Qing struggled for a while. His numb body made him feel despair. At the same time, Qin Fei Yang stared at the surging undercurrent, his expression uncertain. Shua. Just as the undercurrent was about to engulf the two of them, Qin Fei Yang's mind stirred, and the dual-winged snow eagle appeared out of thin air. Qin Fei Yang secretly shouted, "Quickly try and see if you can trap it." The dual-winged snow eagle nodded. A terrifying holy aura roared out and pounced towards the undercurrent. At that moment, the undercurrent quickly retreated to the bottom of the lake. Qin Fei Yang's eyes lit up and said excitedly, "It's escaping, which means that its strength is not as good as yours. Quickly imprison it." Boom. The dual-winged snow eagle's holy aura erupted and crazily pounced towards the undercurrent. The lake was also instantly stirred up with huge waves. What's going on with this holy aura? The commotion here was too big, and the people in the governor's mansion were alarmed. Even the entire inner city could feel the holy aura of the dual-winged snow eagle. In the lake, Qin Fei Yang and Mu Qing were like fallen leaves in the wind, bobbing up and down with the waves. "Someone's coming, quickly," Qin Fei Yang urged. He could clearly sense that there were a few powerful auras rushing towards them. The dual-winged snow eagle's eyes darkened slightly, and its battle aura surged. The water in the lake instantly evaporated. Boom! Accompanied by two loud sounds, Qin Fei Yang and Mu Qing fell into the mud at the bottom of the lake one after another, and their bodies were in a mess. But at the same time, the dual-winged snow eagle finally caught the spirit snake emperor. It was still the color of water, and it was more than 10 meters long, like a water dragon. It was trapped by the dual-winged snow eagle's battle aura barrier, and it did not seem very strong. The dual-winged snow eagle's eyes flashed fiercely, and it shouted, "If you don't want to die, shrink right now." The spirit snake emperor's body trembled, and it quickly shrank to half a meter long. The dual-winged snow eagle brought it to Qin Feiyang's side and asked, "What now?" Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, "Bring Mu Qing here, and let's hide in the castle for a while." The dual-winged snow eagle flapped its wings and landed beside Mu Qing. Then, its battle aura surged and swept Mu Qing up, and it quickly returned to Qin Feiyang's side. Qin Feiyang said, "Grab my hand." The dual-winged snow eagle immediately reached out its claws and grabbed Qin Feiyang's wrist. Then, Qin Feiyang's mind moved, and the two men and two beasts disappeared without a trace. Not long after they entered the castle, 6 figures descended on the lake. The leader was a red-haired old man wearing a fiery red robe. His aura was unfathomable. The other 5 were all middle-aged men wearing black robes. Their brows were emitting a murderous aura. Looking at the lake, their faces were gloomy to the extreme. Whiz! Not long later, the steward of the governor's mansion also rushed over. He scanned the lake below and asked in shock, "What's going on?" The red-haired old man said in a deep voice, "I want to ask you the same thing." The steward's face paled. After pondering for a while, he asked in surprise, "Could it be them?" "Who?" the red-haired old man asked, his eyes like a blade, aggressive. The steward said, "Not long ago, we caught 2 thieves who snuck into the mansion to steal." "And then?" the red-haired old man said, "I asked the guards to send them here as food for the Snake Emperor. However, before they were sent here, they were bitten by the spirit snake and their bodies were already numb. They shouldn't have the strength to fight back." And what appeared just now was also a holy aura. "The 2 of them are only war masters," the steward said. Chapter 902. The spirit snake emperor had no aura and could change the color of its skin, so he didn't know if the spirit snake emperor was still here. Of course, he didn't believe that something would happen to the spirit snake emperor with such an innate advantage. But after a while, he didn't get a response from the spirit snake emperor, nor did he see the shadow of the spirit snake emperor. Gradually, the red-haired old man's heart sank. He looked at the butler and said gloomily, "Go and call those guards over." "Okay." The butler nodded and hurriedly turned and flew away. Soon, he flew back with the 4 guards. "Greetings, Lord." Seeing the red-haired old man, the 4 of them hurriedly bowed. "Let me ask you, did you throw those 2 into the lake?" the red-haired old man asked. "Yes. We only left after watching them sink into the lake." The 4 of them nodded. The red-haired old man said, "Did they do anything unusual on the way?" "No. They were all under our control. If there was anything unusual, we would definitely have noticed." The 4 guards said. "Damn it." The red-haired old man's eyebrows were suddenly filled with anger. "What's wrong?" The butler looked at him suspiciously. "I don't think they are here to steal at all. They are here specifically for the spirit snake emperor," the red-haired old man said in a deep voice. The butler said, "You mean, the spirit snake emperor has been taken away by them?" "That must be the case." The red-haired old man nodded. His eyes flashed coldly as he ordered, "They shouldn't have escaped in such a short time. Immediately seal the mansion and don't let anyone suspicious go." The butler asked, "Should we report this matter to the commander?" Of course. The spirit snake emperor was tamed by the commander with great difficulty. How can it be taken away by others? The red-haired old man said coldly, then looked at the 5 burly men and said, "You guys stay here." The 5 of them nodded. Then the red-haired old man turned and left. The butler immediately led the 4 guards to make the arrangements. The peaceful commander's mansion suddenly became lively. At the same time, it was filled with an aura of mutual hostility. Soon, another white figure came from the opposite side of the lake and stopped in front of the 5 middle-aged men. "Greetings, Mississippi." The 5 of them bowed respectfully. This was a girl in the prime of her youth. Her pure white dress was like snow, and her black hair danced in the wind. Her facial features were exquisite, and her skin was like jade. She was like a fairy that had descended. The woman glanced at the lake below and asked suspiciously, "What happened?" One of the middle-aged men said, "Someone kidnapped the spirit snake emperor." The woman frowned. "Miss, Those two people haven't been found yet. It's too dangerous for you to live there alone. How about I send someone to protect you? The middle-aged man said. It's all right. The woman smiled, turned around, and left. From beginning to end, she appeared very calm. In the meantime, inside the castle, Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing had taken the detoxification pill. Most of the toxins had been removed, and they could move their limbs. With Lu Hong's help, Qin Feiyang stood up and looked at the Spirit Serpent Emperor. Spirit Serpent Emperor was still trapped in the battle chi boundary. Its eyes seemed to be formed by water as it stared at the double-winged snow eagle in horror. Do you want to die? Qin Feiyang asked. The Spirit Serpent Emperor shook its head like a rattle drum. What a coward. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh and said, Then tell me your cultivation. 9-star battle sect. The voice of the Spirit Serpent Emperor sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Not bad. Now you have two choices. First, submit to me. Second, die. Qin Feiyang said. When he found the Spirit Serpent Emperor, he had already thought of subduing it. Because of the innate advantage of the Spirit Serpent Emperor, it could help him a lot. He could even cultivate it into an invisible killer that would strike fear in people's hearts. The Spirit Serpent Emperor hesitated. I know what you are hesitating about. Your current master is the commander of the Kirin army. Not only is he powerful, but he also has a high position. As for me, I'm just a nobody. Following me is definitely not as good as following the commander of the Kirin army. But I can tell you that as long as you choose to follow me, I will make you undergo earth-shattering changes. And one day, your strength will even surpass that of the commander of the Kirin army. Qin Feiyang smiled confidently. The Spirit Serpent Emperor looked at him with a hint of mockery in its eyes. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and lost his patience. He said to the double-winged snow eagle, Just cripple its cultivation. The double-winged snow eagle immediately looked at the Spirit Serpent Emperor with bad intentions. Berserk beasts also had Qi-Si. Therefore, as long as the Spirit Serpent Emperor's Qi-Si was crippled, Qin Feiyang could use the slave seal to easily control it. Of course, even if he didn't cripple the Spirit Serpent Emperor's cultivation, he could still forcibly control it. After all, he was now a 9-star battle sect. However, there was a certain risk in controlling a creature of the same level, so it was best to completely eliminate the risk. After the double-winged snow eagle crippled the Spirit Serpent Emperor's cultivation, Qin Feiyang formed a seal with both hands. A slave seal quickly swept into the Spirit Serpent Emperor's head. In just a short while, the slave seal and the Spirit Serpent Emperor's soul merged together. The Spirit Serpent Emperor immediately felt that there was an additional shackle on its soul. What did you do to me? It stared at Qin Feiyang in shock and anger. Qin Feiyang ignored it and said to Fatso, Give it the Spirit Sea pill. Okay. Fatso ran to the front of the Spirit Serpent Emperor and laughed. Boss has already controlled your soul. If you dare to betray Boss, no matter where you run to, Boss can directly erase your soul with just a thought. What? The Spirit Serpent Emperor's expression changed. Take it. Fatso took out a Spirit Sea pill and threw it over. The Spirit Serpent Emperor swallowed it in one gulp and looked at Qin Feiyang with fear. At the same time, the double-winged snow eagle also retracted its battle chi. The Spirit Serpent Emperor landed on the ground and sized up the ancient castle. Suddenly, its gaze locked onto Wolf King, its heart filled with bewilderment. At this moment, Mu Qing, who was at the side, frowned. After the double-winged snow eagle caused such a ruckus, the governor's mansion is now on full alert. How are we going to kidnap that young lady? Qin Feiyang remained silent. Fatso suddenly said, Why do I think that young lady isn't very afraid? Everyone looked at him suspiciously. Didn't you hear? Just now, someone said that they would send someone to protect her, but she refused. This means that she's not worried at all. Could it be that she's very strong? After Fatso finished speaking, he couldn't help but look at the Spirit Serpent Emperor. Qin Feiyang and the others also turned their heads to look at the Spirit Serpent Emperor. The Spirit Serpent Emperor shrunk its neck and said, Miss is only a war emperor. What? A mere war emperor dares to be so conceited? It can't be that she didn't sense Old Eagle's aura before, right? Wolf King was shocked. Is that possible? Everyone in the governor's mansion was shocked by this emperor's aura, let alone her. The double-winged snow eagle rolled its eyes. Then why is that? Wolf King was suspicious and puzzled. The spirit serpent emperor said, she might be having a secret rendezvous with that man again. Rendezvous? Qin Feiyong and the others were stunned. Who is it? Fatso asked curiously. It's a man called Wan Xiao. He goes to look for Miss every now and then. I've seen him a few times. The spirit serpent emperor said. Wan Xiao? Qin Feiyong and the others looked at each other. What's going on? He actually got together with the daughter of the Kirin army's commander? This guy is quite capable. Qin Feiyong asked. Does the commander know about this? Yes. But the commander doesn't allow them to be together, because the commander investigated Wan Xiao and found out that he doesn't have a good character. The spirit serpent emperor said. Qin Feiyong said, so they have been having secret rendezvous behind the commander's back? Yes. In the past, Miss lived in the backyard with many maids. But because of this, she fell out with the commander and moved to the back of the mountain alone. Everyone thought that Miss was just angry with the commander, but in fact, she wanted to find a quiet place to meet Wan Xiao. The spirit serpent emperor said. Qin Feiyong said, in other words, everyone in the governor's mansion doesn't know about this yet? Yes, only I know. Several times, I lay next to them and watched them have secret rendezvous. There was a hint of vulgarity in the spirit serpent emperor's tone. Qin Feiyong and the others were stunned, and their faces twitched. They couldn't tell that this guy was a peeping Tom. However, it was quite capable. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to do it. Fatso asked, then why didn't you tell the commander about this? I don't want to be a busybody. The spirit serpent emperor said indifferently. Wan Xiao, I really don't know why that woman would fall for Wan Xiao. Qin Feiyong shook his head. He knew Wan Xiao too well. Not only was his character bad, but he was also a shameless villain. Mu Qing smiled and said, actually, this is good news. Yes, we don't need to take any more risks. As long as we catch Wan Xiao, this lady will naturally come to us. Qin Feiyong nodded. Fatso said, there are people guarding outside now. How are we going to leave the commander's mansion? Don't worry. When they can't find us in the mansion, they will naturally leave. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. That, at this moment, the spirit serpent emperor sized up Wolf King, then looked at Qin Feiyong and asked carefully, are you Qin Feiyong? You can't recognize me? Everyone was stunned, then looked at Wolf King in unison. This guy was indeed the best way to identify Qin Feiyong's identity. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. It's true? The spirit serpent emperor was stunned and said in disbelief, you actually dare to come back? Qin Feiyong said, in my dictionary, there is no such word as dare. Then are you back this time to take revenge? The spirit serpent emperor asked, do you think I can do it with my strength? Qin Feiyong asked, definitely not. The spirit serpent emperor shook its head. That's right. Chapter 903. About 1 hour later. The people in the governor's residence searched every corner, but they couldn't find Qin Feiyong. Hence, they expanded their search to the entire inner city. The 5 middle-aged men guarding the lake also secretly went to the back mountain to protect the daughter of the Kirin army's commander under the orders of the red-haired old man. Qin Feiyong wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. He left the ancient castle alone, opened the teleportation door, and left the governor's residence silently. Divine Palace. On a small path, a skinny white-clothed young man suddenly appeared in the void. It was Qin Feiyong. Compared to the governor's residence, the Divine Palace was easier to sneak into. First, Qin Feiyong knew the coordinates of every place in the Divine Palace. It was very convenient for him to come and go. Second, there were too many disciples in the Divine Palace. Even if someone saw him, they wouldn't suspect his identity. Beside the small path, there was a small forest. Qin Feiyong looked around and entered the small forest. When he came out, he had changed into a brand new set of white robes. There was a small sword symbol on his chest. As a former disciple of the Divine Palace, he definitely had the uniform of the Divine Palace. After disguising himself, he went to the plaza in front of the martial arts hall. The Divine Palace was different from the main pagoda. In the main pagoda, no one was guarding the tin pill pagodas or the martial artist mountain. But here, there was a deacon elder guarding. It was a black-clothed old man. Qin Feiyang felt that he was familiar, but he couldn't remember his name. He could only vaguely remember that he had seen him once or twice. The black-clothed old man sat in a room beside the door. The window was transparent. Qin Feiyang walked to the window and said respectfully, "Elder, I want to go in and find a friend." Although the Pill Hall and the Martial Arts Hall were both part of the Divine Palace, the color of their robes were different. The Pill Hall was white. The Martial Arts Hall was black. It was easy to differentiate. Qin Feiyang was wearing the Pill Hall's robes now. So, he had to inform the deacon elder before entering the Martial Arts Hall. The black-clothed old man looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Who are you looking for?" "Tanwu," Qin Feiyang said casually. The old man in black waved his hand and said, "Go in by yourself. Don't stay for too long." "All right." Qin Feiyang nodded and cupped his hands to express his gratitude before entering the martial arts hall. At this moment, it was already dawn. Most of the martial arts hall's disciples were meditating, so it was hard to see anyone in the corridor. "Wan Xiu," Qin Feiyang pondered as he walked. He knew Wan Xiu's original cultivation room. But after all these years, with Wan Xiu's current reputation and means, he must have changed to a better cultivation room. He walked and walked. The stone door of a training room in front of him suddenly opened, and a skinny black-clothed youth walked out. Qin Feiyang hurriedly ran up to him, cupped his hands and smiled. "Senior Martial Brother, may I ask where Senior Martial Brother Wan Xiu's cultivation room is?" The black-clothed youth was stunned and asked, "Why are you looking for him?" "It's a personal matter." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Then what's your relationship with him?" The black-clothed youth asked again. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, "Nothing at all." "Then you have to be careful. He's a difficult person to get along with." The black-clothed youth whispered, Qin Feiyang was stunned and nodded. "Thank you for the reminder. Senior Martial Brother? He's on the top floor. Cultivation Room 101. The people on the top floor are all important people. Be quiet when you go up. Don't disturb them." The black-clothed youth kindly reminded him again. "Thank you." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands to express his gratitude and went deeper. The top floor, putting aside Wan Xiu's character, his ability was indeed outstanding. The martial arts hall had a total of 100 floors. The top floor was basically filled with martial marquee disciples, and ordinary people could not go up. But how many years had it been? Wan Xiu, this fellow, actually climbed up, and he even snatched Cultivation Room 101. Although Alchemy Cultivation Room 101 was ranked after the top 100, there were tens of thousands of cultivation rooms on every floor of the martial arts hall. Therefore, it was already very scary that he could occupy this cultivation room. It could be seen that Wan Xiu's growth over the years could not be ignored. In a short while, he walked to the top floor and scanned the stone doors around him. Suddenly, his gaze locked onto a stone door opposite him, and the words 101 were engraved on it. "After all these years, I want to see how strong you have become." Qin Feiyang muttered to himself, strode to the stone door, and knocked on it. Very soon, the stone door opened slowly. A red-haired youth entered Qin Feiyang's line of sight. This person was tall and straight, and his eyebrows were like swords. He was dressed in a black robe, and his serious face was especially cold. Who else could it be but Wan Xiu? Qin Feiyang sized up Wan Xiu, and there was a hint of shock in the depths of his eyes. This guy had already stepped into the 8-star Battle Master. Wasn't it too fast? One had to know. Wan Xiu did not open the door of potential. "Who are you?" At the same time, Wan Xiu was also sizing up Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang said calmly, "My name is Li Feng, and I'm here to talk to you about something." "Li Feng?" Wan Xiu frowned and said, "I don't know you. I'm not free." After saying that, he was about to close the stone door. Qin Feiyang said meaningfully, I'm here to talk to you about the Kirin army commander. Are you sure you're not free? Wan Xiu's pupil shrank, and then he retreated to the side. Qin Feiyang walked into the cultivation room. Wan Xiu immediately closed the stone door. Come in and sit. Following that, he led Qin Feiyang to the lounge. But when he reached the door of the lounge, he suddenly turned around and stretched out his arm like an eagle's claw, grabbing Qin Feiyang's neck. However, this sudden turn of events did not cause Qin Feiyang to panic. His eyes narrowed slightly, and a dangerous signal passed through him. Wan Xiu said in a deep voice, "Tell me, what do you know?" "I know a lot. For example, you guys secretly met somewhere behind the Kirin army commander's back. If I'm not wrong, you just came back from that place not long ago." Qin Feiyang laughed. "How do you know?" Wan Xiu's eyes trembled as he shouted. The hand that grabbed Qin Feiyang also increased in strength, and the look in his eyes was rather sinister. "Because I was also at the commander's residence at that time." Qin Feiyang grinned, raised his arm, grabbed Wan Xiu's fingers, and slowly pried them open one by one. "What? This strength is so strong." Wan Xiu's expression changed, and he said in shock and anger, "Who exactly are you?" After preying Wan Xiu's hand open, Qin Feiyang grabbed Wan Xiu's wrist and grinned. "I'm your old friend? Don't play tricks." Wan Xiu shouted angrily. But before his voice faded, he felt a flash in front of his eyes, and in the next moment, he appeared in an unfamiliar place. Wan Xiu looked around in surprise. This was of course the castle, but Wan Xiu had never been here before, so he did not know. However, Wolf King, Black Dragon Snake, Pangolin, Lu Hong, Fatso, he recognized them. Looking at those familiar figures, he felt like he was struck by lightning, and his body and mind trembled. How could it be them? In that case, he suddenly looked at Qin Feiyang, and his eyes were filled with deep disbelief. Qin Feiyang said playfully, "Are you surprised? When did you come back?" Wan Xiu was shocked and angry. "In the morning," Qin Feiyang said. Wan Xiu panicked. Suddenly, he noticed Spirit Snake Emperor, and his pupils constricted. "So it was you who kidnapped Spirit Snake Emperor in the commander's residence?" Qin Feiyang said, "This was just an accident. I entered the commander's residence to kidnap your little girlfriend." "You dare." Wan Xiu's expression changed, and he shouted angrily, "It seems that you care about her. But I believe that you only care about her identity and status." Qin Feiyang said. Wan Xiu suddenly looked as if his tail had been stepped on, and his face was full of gloominess. "It seems that I'm right. You want to use her family background to achieve your ambition? Don't misunderstand. I'm not mocking you. On the contrary, I admire you. When you first entered the temple, you curried favor with Lin Dian and the other Marquis' sons, and later on, you curried favor with the princes. And how long has it been? And you actually got together with the daughter of the commander of the Kirin army? I really have to admit that I did underestimate you in the past." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Wan Xiu's face darkened and said, "Then why are you looking for me now? What do you think?" Qin Feiyang smiled mockingly. Wolf King, Fatso, and the others also looked at him with evil intentions. Wan Xiu's face could not help but turn pale. At this time, Mu Qing raised her eyebrows and said, "Don't waste time. Hurry up and act." "Act?" Wan Xiu looked at them in surprise. Qin Feiyang glanced at Wan Xiu, then looked at Fatso and Wolf King and said, "Watch him." The man and the beast nodded. Qin Feiyang left the castle with Mu Qing and immediately opened the portal and walked in. Black Dragon Pool. The two appeared out of thin air, but there was no trace of Yigleo. Qin Feiyang said, "This plan, we still need Yigleo's help. What do you want to do?" Mu Qing asked. "It's definitely impossible to get the commander of the Kirin army to sincerely help us. The only way is to control his life," Qin Feiyang said. "I see." Mu Qing suddenly understood, took out the image crystal, and was about to send a message to Yigleo. "How's the investigation going?" But at this time, Yigleo rushed out of the jungle below the mountain stream, landed in front of the two, and asked. "Not good," Mu Qing said in a low voice. Yigleo's eyes darkened slightly and said, I just heard you say that you want to ask the commander of the Kirin army for help? Yes, because only he can freely enter the prison of God. Qin Feiyang nodded, and then took Wan Xiao out of the castle. Have you found out whether Lu Xingqian is in the prison of God? Yiglao asked. There's no need to find out. The commander of the Kirin army must know. Qin Feiyang looked at Wan Xiao and said with a faint smile, Call your little girlfriend here. Lu Xingqian, prison of God, the commander of the Kirin army. Wan Xiao was not stupid. Hearing the conversation between Qin Feiyang and the other two, he could roughly guess, you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.